story that's heating up online, but hasn't really broken through the mainstream headlines yet. The hashtag Silver Squeeze is trending once again, bringing echoes to the 2021 retail silver rush that briefly sent prices soaring and rattled institutional markets. Now, here in late March of 2025, the movement is back, and it's dubbed Silver Squeeze 2.0, with social media platforms like X lighting up over a planned collective buying event set for March 31st. Now, the idea here is to buy up as much physical silver as possible to put pressure on what they claim is a manipulated paper market.
The food companies all came and met with me 2 weeks ago, and they were scared of me, but they're more scared of Governor Morrissey, because what they said, and they said, tell us what you want, we're going to do it. And they said, but stop these governors from passing these laws, because we don't want a patchwork where West Virginia and California are banning food dyes, and we have to make special products for those.
And do you think it's the immunity to any legal consequences that has allowed them to sort of operate like this?
Well, we certainly saw an explosion of their creativity since 1986. So 1986, you're referring to the National Child Vaccine Injury Act that was passed in 1986. But before 1986, we had 1976, which was the swine flu vaccine fiasco. And that was a situation where there was so much injury that the vaccine producing companies were no longer able to get insurance. And so they went to the government and they said, we need you to indemnify us. And they did.
Hey guys, welcome back to Resistance Chicks. We're your hosts, Leah and Michelle. Have we got a show for you today? We're going to talk about Silver Squeeze 2.0. Leah, we've been waiting for this. They had a Silver Squeeze back in 2021, and everyone was super uber excited about it. We're going to tell you what it is, what it was, what it may be, what it might do, but whatever it is supposed to start on March 31st, which is this Monday. So we're going to get into all of that. Now, RFK Jr. has met with what we're calling big food, as in big pharma, big ag, and big food. So we've got Kraft, Heinz, Pepsi Company, and so many more going to RFK Jr. They are afraid. And as RFK Jr. says, they're actually more afraid of the states and the governors than they are of me. So that's super fascinating. Joe Rogan had on Susan Humphreys. She's a nephrologist, if I said that correctly. And she's going to get into, the 1986 deal that Big Pharma made with the government for immunity for the harmful effects of their JABs going into human beings and the adverse reactions that happen. They don't have to pay anything. They don't have to do anything. But Joe Rogan a little bit stunned after that conversation with Susan there. So we've got that and so much more. JD Vance went to, I know this is world news, but it's domestic because JD Vance is our vice president, went to Greenland. Are we going to obtain the Patriot Gallery up there talking to a dog? Are we going to obtain Greenland? Is it going to become part of the United States? I am not just speaking prophetically. I'm saying no, this is wholly out of left field. It's not going to happen, but you need to know that they are serious about it. It's a real thing to them. And I don't know if you have this queued up for today's show, but Kristi Noem headed down to a prison.
She went to El Salvador?
Yes. And it's showing the gang members essentially as quote unquote animals. And I actually haven't had a chance to talk to Leah about this, so I'm kind of curious to what Leah's opinion is on it. Not only does it look a little bit staged and weird to me, I didn't really like it. A lot of people are like super excited about it. Mega's really excited about it. And I'm looking at him going, I don't know, there's something about this that just doesn't seem right. So I don't know if that's on Leah's docket for tonight, but I would like to add it if it's not. So also in, regular news, we are having spring weather finally. Today it hit 70 degrees roughly here in Ohio, and I am ready. One of my pet clients today, I was in shorts and short sleeves, and she says, looks like you're ready for the 70-degree weather. I said, listen, Winter and I, we get along, but we're not best friends. So I'm very excited. Leo is out in the garden today, working on some things. So the weather is finally, at least for us in Ohio, broken. I'm not sure about those of you in the colder regions of the United States, but at least for us, it feels like something is broken through. Why do I bring that up? I bring that up because I really and truly feel like this winter has been spiritually long. And it feels like as the physical winter comes to an end, there's going to be a breakthrough, but I'm not sure that breakthrough is going to come without a break. And that's what we're looking at with economic collapse and things. Not necessarily scary, but worth noting and worth being ready for. So, Leah, I think that's my intro. Take it away.
All right. Well, today I wrote down a word before we get started because this goes along with the silver squeeze. And the word that I got today was embrace the battle. In other words, embrace the suck.
Which is a word we don't use.
With the silver squeeze here, lean into self-sacrifice and freedom comes. I live for Christ, to die is gain. I'm happy just to be alive. I'm happy to be breathing. I'm happy and grateful for 2 hands, 2 feet, hair on my head, shoes on my feet. God is good to me. The devil is bad, but God is good.
Come on.
God's plan is better and greater and more powerful than the devil's or the deep state's plan. The kingdom of God is bigger and more powerful. God's will, and then you need to pray. God's will be done here on earth as it is done in heaven. And what if embracing the battle, and you put in the, fill in the blank, I don't need blank. I don't need blank. Whatever it is that you think you need, just fill it in. I don't need blank. Okay? And the list of things that you think you need, all you need is Christ.
Amen.
It brings freedom. It eventually, the thing that we desperately want and need comes through seeking first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things that Gentiles seek will be added unto you. Whether you need healing, whether you've got trouble in your marriage, whether you need debt wiped out, whatever it is, what if we see life as an adventure and Christ as the centerpiece of everything? Mm-hmm. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things the Gentiles seek will be given unto you. We must lose our lives to find them. We must lay down our lives in order to pick them up. The devil wants you to think that his team is so much bigger. Mm-hmm. The devil will get you tied up using his tools to fight his attack. He wants you to use his tools to fight his attack, because a kingdom fighting against a kingdom will not stand. It won't work. We can't use the enemy's tools of lying, deceit, cheating, backbiting, fear mongering, anger, rage, frustration, depression, false witness, to get one over on the devil. All he will do is laugh at us and make us into a fool. We must resist the devil. Resist his talk of lying, fear, frustration, whatever he's saying to you, selfishness, self-seeking. Submit to God. Lord, I give you all that I am. I give you blank. Whatever it is, give it to him. And then, like Jesus in the desert, if you hear the enemy speaking, speak the word of God to that opposes the opposite of what he's saying. Speak the truth. If he says you are alone, quote the scripture, I will never leave you nor forsake you. I'm part of the body of the Christ. I have a great cloud of witnesses surrounding me. If he says you're stuck, the world wins, just give in and do it the world's way. I quote scripture, come out from amongst them and be separate.
Come on.
I am not of this world. Be in it, but not of it. I will not bow down to demons. I will not bow down. If you ever hear the words, it's never going to get better, then you say, all things work together for good for those of the Lord.
Come on.
God has a wonderful plan for me, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and give you a hope and give you a future. And then I want you guys to write down, what are your gifts? What are you good at? Write those things down. And then later on, I think next Wednesday, I don't know, we might talk about the beast that we did a Revelation Red Pill. We did the Horror of Babylon.
So
good.
Fun. You know, we got a couple of comments, some emails from people that were like, "Thank you for this message." It was really like that show, the Horror of Babylon, Revelation Red Pill this week, really hit people. I think it was, even throughout the show, people were like, "Man, this is really fascinating."
It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
So the Horror of Babylon being the city of Jerusalem, and it makes sense if you go watch the show. And the beast being Rome and riding the Rome. And today I was out in the garden and I heard the Lord say the beast is, the creature of Jekyll Isle is the beast, and the beast is the Federal Reserve. And so tonight we're going to talk about the silver squeeze. And why is this important? Because the beast that we are currently battling right now, everything that I talk about besides natural disasters, almost every single problem that the world has today, a good majority of them are tied to the Federal Reserve. A lot of people don't want money to go to Israel. Well, money doesn't go to Israel if you don't have the Federal Reserve. A lot of people are upset about sex trafficking. You don't have sex trafficking unless you have the Federal Reserve. Okay, you just don't.
I would like to re-include the quote-unquote natural disasters, because we aren't convinced that the disasters that are happening in nature are natural of late, and probably can be tied back to the Federal Reserve. Just wanted to throw that out there.
That's absolutely true. It could definitely be tied to those things. But this week, there are some silver guys, and they have decided to do what's called a squeeze. And a squeeze is when you are trying to squeeze a short. And I'm going to bring up an article for you to describe this, because I know that it's hard to understand. Well, what was the silver squeeze about? What's a squeeze in general? And I want to read this article by Jesse Colombo, and it's the mechanics of silver price suppression. And it's a kind of an in-depth article, so I'm going to try to give you the layman's term of what is happening in the markets. Now, you have to understand, when these precious metals are being artificially suppressed, and silver is being artificially suppressed, it's being artificially suppressed so that the value of the dollar is seen to be strong still. So today gold hit a new high. Now, we're not watching these numbers. Certainly don't want to watch these numbers going up. I'm going to tell you guys, when gold hits another high, it's not a yay, my investment's going up. And I actually really don't like when the silver and gold people do this, okay? Because they're like, I feel great. Yeah, it's a wealth preservation, and I guess it's kind of okay for you to feel okay. But what that means is gold hitting a record high again after it just hit. Here's the thing. Gold jumped $100 an ounce. People look at gold and silver, mostly gold. When they look at gold, it'll fluctuate a few dollars. Oh my gosh, gold went up $10. Could you believe that? Oh my gosh. Okay. Gold has gone up $1,000 in the past year per ounce. It hit a record high of $2,000. Then it broke the ceiling. That's what it's called, breaking the ceiling. Of 3,000. They were different kind of like ceilings, like a mental deal. And then it's like, it's going to go up. And some people were saying...
What did I say? I said, once it hits 3,000, I said, you watch it, it's done.
Yeah.
It's just...
So the rest of you who we've told, and we've said, hey, go to,
Zhang Enterprise,
go to ITM Trading, go to SD Bullion, and you have your savings in gold, you're going to be like, I'd like a phone call, please, or an email. No, you can't have my phone call. Email saying, hey, Leah, you were right. You were stinking right. If you guys bought gold last year, you got $1,000 more for every $2,000 you put into gold. Now you have $1,100 more. And it's still underpriced. Now, I have been honest with you about silver. Okay? Silver isn't budging, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay? I believe it will break out at some point. But I've always known that gold doesn't have the suppression mechanics on it that silver does. Okay? Silver has to stay down because these guys make a ton of money off of cheap silver. Okay? If silver were the same, we're tracking with gold, silver would be $250 to $300. And you guys would be, oh, wow, Leah, thank you, right? So let me tell you about this silver squeeze and why people are doing this, because there's a lot of silver stackers out there who know that silver should be money. Many precious metals investors have heard about silver manipulation or suspected it, but very few understand how it works or can clearly explain it. Many also intuitively sense that silver's price is artificially low and should be much higher, but struggle to identify what or who is keeping it suppressed. And this is an article I want to, Jesse Colombo. He said, I have committed myself to studying silver price manipulation, documenting the evidence, and educating others. Simply put, the goal of silver price manipulation is to keep silver's price artificially low as well as to prevent it from breaking above key technical levels. Okay, right now, the global elite are buying gold. They don't have a need to suppress the gold because they are ready for the run. Because when the run happens, they are going to get stinking filthy rich. Okay? Stinking filthy rich. Okay? And quite frankly, it's the only honest way to do it. So if you are still have your finances in a retirement account and you're going to watch that go down and down and down, and I'm just telling you, I am legit, I'm like begging you, not for me, for you, find some way. I'm not giving you advice, but you know what I'm trying to tell you to do. Because I just know. I mean, if you guys had listened, I just think to myself, God, why haven't you given me a bunch of money? Because right now I'd have a bunch of money. It's so funny. I legit, for every $2,000 you had, you would have an extra $1,000, $1,100 right now today if you had done this a year ago. Okay.
But that's not the point. And I know that you want to emphasize that, but like, guys, it's not having, you wouldn't. That's a lie. I rebuke it.
Inflation.
Let me clarify. I'm not saying that Leah's a liar. Okay. Obviously Leah's not lying, but this dollar has lost $1,000 in value since last year.
Yes.
Okay, that's what that means. It means anytime you look and
for every $3,000, it's now worth $2,000. Let me just say that, put it that way. Okay,
so it would preserve
your wealth by an extra $1,000.
Preservation. It's not get into it so you can get rich, so that you can get more money. It's take any money that you have and put it into something that is tangible and real and will last.
Mm-hmm. So instead of a lie, it's more of a let me explain this better. Because that's the better way to put it is if you had $2,000, if you for every $3,000 you have, I can't tell you, you would have an extra $1,000. That's the way you can put it. Or you'd lose less. Let's put it that way. The rest of us are just losing, but it's okay. God is on our side. Okay, God's on our side.
Amen.
According to consensus within the precious metals community, the primary culprits behind the silver price manipulation are the bullion banks, the most influential players in the precious metal market. These include major financial institutions such as JP Morgan Chase, UBS, HSBC, and Goldman Sachs, several of which have been found guilty, actually, of precious metals markets and manipulation, particularly in gold and silver. Bullion banks are typically members of the London Bullion Market Association, LBMA, the leading authority overseeing the global over-the-counter OTC precious metals market. As the London Bullion Market members, these banks play a central role in the market by acting as market makers, facilitating large trades, and managing vaulting and storage. Because a lot of these guys, one guy for the silver squeeze, they're trying to get people to buy silver on the 31st of March. A lot of people, if you go to YouTube, there's a lot of naysayers there, like saying, I don't think it's going to work. I was there part of the 2021 squeeze and that didn't work. Here's the thing. They almost worked. If they had kept the foot on the gas just a little bit longer, it was actually the dam was getting ready to break and they were going to squeeze. And I'll tell you what the squeeze is. It really almost worked. However, I am going to tell you this. What they're saying, don't buy any more silver than what you normally would. We're just saying if you're going to buy it on that day. Okay. This so these guys do the vaulting of it. Now, one of the guys who wants to be part of it has already bought out. He said he bought like 1.6 million ounces in the silver squeeze community. That's crazy. So they has to, obviously I'm thinking that he put that in a vault. So these guys managed vaulting all this and storage and participating in price setting mechanisms such as the daily London gold and silver fix. This dominant position allows them to exert significant influence over silver prices, making manipulation not just possible, but systemic. The most common, obvious, and widespread form of silver manipulation is price slams, also known as tamps. So as the price will start to go up, they slam it. Now, how do they slam it? They slam it by the most nefarious means you could ever think of. Creating fake paper silver and flooding the market with that. Let me read that. So these almost exclusively take place on the New York COMEX trading sessions between 11:30 and to 8:30 and 11 a.m. Eastern. This is crazy. These slams occur on a high percentage of mornings, but they become even more frequent and aggressive when silver is attempting to break above a technical or psychological level. When silver approaches a breakout point that could trigger a snowball effect of additional buying, bullion banks step in to drop the hammer, forcefully slamming the price back down below the level. This calculated suppression is designed to demoralize existing silver investors, discourage new participants, and ensure that silver's price languishes, preventing momentum from building in its favor. Silver's price action over the past year serves as a textbook example of how silver tamping works. And there's a chart here. As the chart below illustrates, silver has repeatedly attempted to break above the $32 to $33 resistance zone, only to be slammed back down each time except for the current breakout attempt. Notably, these persistent price slams have kept silver stagnant even as gold has surged about $1,000 an ounce, and now it's $3,100, a powerful 50% bull market rally that under normal conditions would have pulled silver higher due to its historically strong price relationship. However, bullion banks have gone to extraordinary lengths to prevent silver from following its sibling gold. So you can see this. It starts to get up. It starts to get up to the 32, 33, and then it slams back down. And then it starts to get up. It actually hit above 35, 36, almost 35.5, and slams back down. Oh, it's just crazy. You can see it. To see what one of these slams looks like on an intraday chart, let's examine a particularly egregious example from Friday morning, February 14th. So this, if you look at this, this is actually... from what I understand,
it's not broken down that tiny, but you can kind of look at it a little bit.
Yeah. So on February 14th, when the daily chart above provides a broader view of the price action, the intraday chart below, I think it's below, you can see the intraday chart below, so scroll down, captures exactly how it unfolded that morning. Bullion banks rely on the assumption that most people won't scrutinize their tactics too closely. But that's exactly what we're going to do here. Some of the most aggressive slams tend to occur on Friday mornings during the U.S. trading session. With the Asian and European markets closed, trading volume and liquidity are significantly lower, creating the perfect conditions for bullion banks to manipulate silver's price with minimal resistance. This lack of market depth allows them to maximize their impact, giving them more bang for their buck when executing price suppression tactics. So you can see this is a 5-minute intraday chart. Silver staged a powerful breakout, surging $1 per ounce of 3% during the Asian and European trading sessions. This rally pushed silver above the key $33 resistance level, which had acted as a ceiling for much of the past year, sparking excitement within the precious metals community as many believed silver was finally taking off. However, at 9 a.m. New York time, as the U.S. trading session got underway, a massive flood of paper silver in the form of futures contracts. I want to buy some silver in the future, paper, suddenly dumped into the market. This deliberate maneuver drove the silver back down below the critical $33 level, halting the breakout in its tracks and demoralizing silver investors once again. Note that the silver dumped into the market was just paper silver. It didn't exist. It was futures contracts largely unbacked by any physical metal. This is the primary way bullion banks artificially suppress silver's price, keeping it well below where it should be based on true supply and demand for physical silver. What's both infuriating and disheartening is that this manipulative pattern has persisted almost daily for decades, consistently driving prices downward, never upward. The chart, there's another chart here below, shows another egregious example of the manipulation slam pattern, captured on the intraday silver futures chart from the late October to early November. During this period, silver made a strong breakout attempt, reaching as high as $35 per ounce, only to be aggressively slammed lower nearly every morning between 8:30 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern. The heavy selling pressure during the U.S. trading session repeatedly drove silver's price back down, putting the kibosh on the widely watched late October breakout attempt. These manipulation slams almost exclusively occur in the morning and rarely at any other time in the trading day. To me, these are unmistakable fingerprints of bullion banks deliberately suppressing silver's price. This is anything but an organic or natural market. And sure enough, at the time of the writing on March 19th, 2025, silver has been slammed in all 4 of the last trading sessions, proving that this manipulation pattern remains alive and well. Interestingly, Gold's Charts RS, a leading provider of precious metals data, analyzed and averaged every silver futures trading session from 2007 to 2013. Their findings revealed a clear and consistent pattern: sharp price slams during the New York morning session, followed by recoveries in the afternoon and overnight as the Asian and European markets opened. This exact pattern is clearly visible in the chart, and you can see this chart. Unfortunately, the same phenomenon occurs in 2025. The Gold Charts RS also provided statistical evidence through another model demonstrating that for literally decades, silver has been consistently slammed during the New York morning trading sessions, only to recover later in the European and Asian sessions. The black line you can see in this chart represents the New York intraday silver index. I know this is getting into the weeds, but just follow it, which tracks the theoretical price of silver if one were to buy at the New York open, hold it throughout the trading day, and then sell it at the close. Okay? This index future illustrates how silver price is regularly pressured downward during the U.S. market hours before rebounding in the overseas sessions. Starting with a base of 100 in 1970, this index has relentlessly eroded, plunging to just 8.9 by February 2025, a staggering decline of nearly 92%. In stark contrast, the New York Overnight Silver Index, represented by the blue line on the chart, tracks the theoretical price of silver if one were to buy at the New York close in the afternoon and sell at the New York opening the following morning. And so where the Asian markets are and the European markets are. Okay? Starting from a base of 100 in 1970, the index has skyrocketed to over 20,000, an astonishing gain of 19,900%. So what this means is if the JP Morgan guys and the other guys were not slamming this price every morning, the Asian and European markets are trying to make it rise. Okay. And then it gets flooded again with paper futures.
So the idea is on March 31st for the purchases of silver to so far exceed what they can do to slam down the price of silver so that it finally breaks through their ability to cover it with they don't have enough futures, right? That we outweigh the flood, that we flood the flood, if that makes sense.
So I'm going to show you this red line because this helps it make a little sense. So the red line is the actual price of silver. Okay. You'll see that the price of silver has actually kind of followed where the Asian markets and the European markets were taking it. It's nowhere near what was happening in the United States in the futures market. This is clear evidence that normal market forces are not at play. Meaning, this is not how people are reacting. This is not people. This is not normal people. Okay. Then there's this guy named Mr. Slammy. Adding to the humor, there is even a parody account on X impersonating Mr. Slammy, playfully teasing and tormenting precious metals investors whenever gold and silver surge higher. When the metals inevitably get slammed back down, the account takes mock victory laps, celebrating the suppression. It's literally called tamping down, slamming down. Like everybody knows it happens. The origin of the term tamp or tamping down in reference to the intentional slamming of silver prices traces back to a statement made in 2021 by Rostin Benham, who was then the chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. Benham essentially admitted that silver was deliberately slammed by 10%, February 2nd, 2021, when we had the silver squeeze, okay? And in an approving tone, he stated that silver futures were able to tamp down what could have been a much worse situation. A worse situation. That situation referred to growing fears of a silver shortage and a potential squeeze. So this is clear market manipulation, okay? So this form of manipulation isn't just theoretical. In 2023, two former JP Morgan precious metals traders, Michael Nowak and Greg Smith, were convicted of price manipulation and spoofing. But here's the thing. You're convicted of price manipulation, but what about all the people that were harmed by you spoofing and keeping these precious metals artificially down? They actually went to jail. They're in jail right now. Spoofing as part of a broader market rigging scheme resulting in fines and prison sentences. Yet, despite these convictions, similar tactics continue to be used. So, there's a short selling of the COMEX silver futures by swap dealers. And this is how they work. Primarily the trading desk of bullion banks, JP Morgan and UBS. In the process, these entities amassed a massive net short position. Now, what does this mean? They are borrowing futures contracts. Now, here's the thing. It's one thing to buy a futures contract. We have now created a fictitious thing, which is a futures contract of they have nothing in their hand. And then they borrow it and immediately sell it. Wait, what?
So, okay, let's put this in regular terms. Are you great? You've got a garden tiller.
Okay.
I've had this happen before, by the way. Put it in garden tiller terms, okay? So someone borrows your garden tiller.
Okay.
Then they sell it. They borrowed it from you. Like, they still have to give it back to you. They don't actually own it. Okay? They don't own your garden tiller.
And they sell it for, let's say, $100.
Exactly.
Because the next day, they're going to buy it back for $75.
So then they've made
$25 on borrowing your tiller.
Exactly.
And then they're going to give it back to you.
Now, they didn't rent it out. They sold it. And then they have to buy it back.
They do.
Now, using a garden tiller is it's worse than just the garden tiller, because the garden tiller is a thing.
But the
futures aren't even a thing.
If the person if you can't buy a garden tiller back
for
what you sold it for
$100 or less,
if you have to buy it back for $125,
then you've lost
$25.
So
and you still have to give the tiller back to the person you borrowed it from.
Right. So what we have,
you got to find a tiller to buy.
So the goal to explain the silver squeeze is we're going to call it the garden tiller squeeze.
Mm-hmm. You buy all the garden tillers around.
On Monday,
right?
We've got all of these crooks out there that have borrowed all of these garden tillers.
So let me say, it's 42,116 futures contracts, equivalent of 211 million ounces of silver.
Okay, so we've got 211 million garden tillers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. They have borrowed 211 million garden tillers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then they sold them. We're going to just make up a price for $100. They need, and they do this daily, by the way. Okay. They need to be able to buy them back for $100 or less, or they end up shorted. Okay, or not shorted. They end up shorting is what they're actually doing. That's what it's called. When they short it by selling it at 100 and buying it back.
To go get some money to get tillers.
So what's going to happen on Tuesday morning, is all of these people owe 211 million garden tillers, and they won't be able to buy them
at the same
for
price,
less.
So then they
equal to or less than what they sold them for.
So then they have to decide: hold or go and pay the money. Hold or pay the money. Hold or pay the money. So
when you say hold,
so let's say then all the tillers are now 125. Mm-hmm. If you think that it might go back down again, you just hold.
Yeah, but they owe the
they
people
don't
that
have
they
to
borrowed.
pay it back. They don't have to. They don't have to pay back. Right? They don't have to. It just, but if it starts to go, the problem with the GameStop is the prices kept going up. See, the guys who shorted GameStop,
they will have to pay them back. You have to give the tiller back eventually, whether it is that next day, which is what they usually do, or weeks. So the longer that they wait, the more money they're going to lose. So if the garden tiller is
JP Morgan has these, and they can hold these as kind of indefinitely.
But they have to pay it back at some point. Like they can't hold it until like,
I don't know what that is. I don't know.
5,228 year. Okay. They have to pay it back at some point because this is the point. Or else they're stuck with, what are they stuck with? Something that they can't ever get out from underneath. So you're right. They may not have to pay it back, or they're stuck with something that they can't ever get out from underneath of. So if silver hits, or the garden tillers go to 125, they're thinking, shoot, maybe it'll come back down. Then they wait the next day, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 200, 250, 350, 450, 550. And so at what point they've now lost everything. So the idea is that they're going to need to scramble to get out. If they see that trend is going to that, 250, 350, 450, they're going to lose on such a massive scale. So the idea of what we are doing, the silver squeeze, is to make that trend hit that 125, 130, 150, 175, 200, 250. And so us buying the garden tillers, which is what we will do on Monday, and what you will do on Monday, we will be buying the garden tillers so that it squeezes their short position.
So for every dollar increase in the price of silver, these swap dealers will owe $211 million in loss. They will have $211 million in losses. What's even more astonishing, though.
So if silver goes for, let's say for $35, goes to 36, how much do they owe?
$211 million.
Goes to 37, how much do they owe? 422.
422, yeah.
So if it goes to 38, then
so
what
they
is
have to
it?
decide whether they're going to keep holding. But
33.
Could they slam it again with more futures? Yeah, they might be able to do that.
But if we squeeze it hard enough, will they be able to get enough futures?
I don't know, because here's the thing. The problem is I don't know if it's indefinite with the paper futures.
I don't think it is. Because here's the deal. Otherwise, the silver squeeze wouldn't have as much momentum behind it as it does.
What's even more astonishing is how much of this massive short position in silver futures is, quote, naked, meaning it isn't backed by physical silver. Instead, it consists largely of paper silver being dumped onto the market to artificially suppress the price. However, once silver finally breaks out, it is likely to trigger a wave of short covering, where the banks that bet against silver through naked short selling are forced to buy it back at prices as prices rise to limit their losses. As the price climbs, these banks will become increasingly desperate to close their positions, further fueling the rally. That means close your position means to get, they have to give back the money, give back the silver that you bought. If the buying pressure is strong enough, it could even lead to a short squeeze, dramatically amplifying silver's upward momentum. Given the sheer size of this short position, we talked about the increase. Imagine what would happen if it was 5, 10, or 20. The risk of an explosive silver short squeeze is further amplified by the astonishing ratio.
I've got the image up right now.
378 ounces of paper silver, including ETFs, futures, and other derivatives, for every 1 ounce of physical silver. This extreme imbalance highlights just how over-leveraged the paper silver market has become. In a violent short squeeze, holders of paper silver could be forced to scramble for the extremely scarce physical silver to fulfill their contract obligations. This would likely cause the price of paper silver products to collapse, while the physical silver prices could skyrocket.
So this is what we talk about, breaking out and this separation between, see, right now, the price of physical silver, is tied to paper silver.
So why do
and so if we can squeeze it, then you will see the price of physical silver uncouple from the price of paper silver. And if it does that,
it did that in 2021, because the prices and people were having a hard time getting a hold of silver. They do so on behalf of several central banks, such as the Federal Reserve. Why do they do this? Which seek to maintain confidence in the paper currencies like the U.S. dollar. If silver goes through the roof, people will lose confidence in the paper dollar, and the U.S. loses all influence in the world. Okay,
and we're going to get into that when we round off this segment.
A soaring silver price signals weakness in fiat money. By keeping it artificially low, bullion banks help preserve the illusion of the strong dollar. This motivation becomes clear when considering that the U.S. money supply has surged by over 85,000% since 1920. drastically eroding the dollar's purchasing power. As the dollar declines, the cost of living continues to rise, making a normal middle-class lifestyle increasingly out of reach for most Americans. In contrast, while paper currencies around the world have steadily lost value, silver has retained its purchasing power, serving as a hedge against inflation and currency devaluation. While the supply of dollars has surged and continues to expand, silver has consistently preserved its purchasing power. Here's the compelling chart here. Below illustrates how the purchasing power of $1,000 in silver ounces has changed. In 1960, $1,000 in silver ounces would buy 1,087 ounces of silver. But today, it purchases only 29 ounces of silver, a staggering 97% decline in the dollar's purchasing power relative to silver. This means that the same amount of silver in 1960 could buy roughly the same quantity of goods and services then as it does today.
Unreal.
Whereas the dollar has lost significant value. That's a powerful reason to consider storing wealth in physical silver. Though silver is heavily manipulated and suppressed, possibly the most manipulated asset on the planet, I have strong hope that it will soon break free and thrive. The key lessons for my optimism include the fact that silver has been in a supply deficit for the past 5 years, with demand consistently outpacing supply. And I think, so there's striking parallels here with silver's $32 to $33 resistance zone to the breakout with gold in 2020 to early 2024. So it's possible that silver could break out at some point this year. I am not seeing the same, just to let you know, fervor for this particular squeeze on Monday that I saw in 2021. I see people talking about it. I see that it's a thing, but I'm also seeing less of a fervor for normies or anybody to get involved. And I'm seeing like the traditional silver guys saying that's not that big of a deal. You don't need to buy money on that day. So I just want you to know that, don't go overly crazy. Don't go putting silver on your credit card.
Do not do that.
If you have money to play around with and you want to be a part of this, certainly it's never going to hurt to buy silver. Okay. So if you want to get in on it, it's this, when you're doing a squeeze of some sort, it is a game. And so, to me, if you want to play the game with them, go ahead and play the game with them.
I see it a little bit different. I mean, yes, I don't see I see the silver squeeze more like a protest.
Yes. I like that. This is
more of a game. It's a protest. It's like, do you want to participate in the protest?
I like that better. I'm sorry, forgive me. I like the protest because what I'm saying, sometimes, hey, what is a protest accomplish? Sometimes you're just putting a lot of eyes on it. And the good part about a thing of a silver squeeze, if everybody's buying silver anyway, there's a lot of people buying silver, and you all decide to buy on one day, why not? Or if you're going to buy a bunch in the year and you've got extra money and you just want to buy it now, then why not? Like, let's get some eyes on it. And we do know that states around the country are making gold and silver legal tender to the point of being able to use fractional gold and fractional silver for like full purchases. So that's kind of neat. So let's play this video over here with Kitco News. Could be historic. We'll see. I'm not banking anything on it. I think it's interesting. It's definitely something to cover.
Welcome back to Kitco News. I'm Jeremy Safran. Well, gold has hit another new record high as investors rush to safety after President Donald Trump announced new auto tariffs. Now, there's fears of a broader trade war reignited the gold rally, of course, pushing April futures up nearly $50 on the day to trade at a new high of about $3,070 an ounce. And if you can believe it, this is gold's 17th record high this year. But what about silver?
17th record high.
Well, silver is also up more than 40% in the last 12 months, outpacing gold and even other most major asset classes. Yet its record high of just below $50 remains out of reach, with spot prices currently trading at around $35 an ounce. However, the question is this about to change? Today on the show, we're digging into a story that's heating up online, but hasn't really broken through the mainstream headlines yet. The hashtag silver squeeze is trending once again.
So just FYI, if you did buy silver in 2021 during the silver squeeze, spot prices were about 29. And so you would be ahead. Just, I want to,
It was
you wouldn't have-
$17 an ounce when we first got into it. It dropped down a couple of times to $15 and even $14 when we first started buying silver. And it was kind of sad. You're like, oh man, I've lost like $3 or $4. And now I look at it and I go, oh my gosh, we went from 17 dropping down to 15 and 14, and now we're up at 35. It actually, again, it should be at $250 or $300 if it was keeping pace with gold, which historically, from the beginning of time, silver has always kept pace with gold at 10 or 15 to 1, mostly 10. The $200 or $300 range is the 15 to 1.
Bringing echoes to the 2021 retail silver rush that briefly sent prices soaring and rattled institutional markets. Now, here in late March of 2025, the movement is back, and it's dubbed Silver Squeeze 2.0, with social media platforms like X lighting up over a planned collective buying event set for March 31st. Now, the idea here is to buy up as much physical silver as possible to put pressure on what they claim is a manipulated paper market. Now, joining us to break it all down and to help us understand if this movement could spark a real market disruption is one of our friends, Peter Kraut. He is the author of The Great Silver Bull. And he's also the editor of the Silver Stock Investor. Great to see you, Peter, as always.
Jeremy, always a pleasure to be with you.
Well, we got lots to talk about, my friend, particularly on the silver front. I feel like I got to give a quick little explainer to the viewers, because the silver squeeze in 2021 was an attempt by retail investors, primarily from the Reddit forum, Wall Street Bets, to create a short squeeze in the silver market, similar to what was executed with the GameStop stock. And it's also worth noting that the gold-silver ratio sits near 88.9, which is historically suggests silver may be undervalued relative to gold. So let's start with the basics. Peter, why is silver squeeze, the hashtag, trending again right now?
Well, there's been a lot of silver flowing into New York from London. There's concern about tariffs, of course, and if tariffs are imposed, they could potentially affect gold, affect silver. Copper, in fact, has been moving a lot as well from east to west. And interestingly enough, a lot of this metal is ending up it's moving to New York, but it's ending up in private vaults. So I just wanted to sort of throw that in. That's sort of an interesting aspect to sort of what's going on, and there's, as there has been for a long time, ongoing talk about the potential that silver prices are manipulated and kept down. And interestingly enough, I'm actually myself wondering about the March 31st. That's just a few days away. It is before these new tariffs that Trump is talking about should kick in on April 2nd. It's the end of the month, end of a quarter, and it's interesting that this to see what kind of effect this could have. You mentioned earlier there was a similar kind of event that took place. I write about that in my book in some detail. That took place in late January of 2021. So, just for a bit of context, we were into the COVID period for about a year at that point, and there was this call on Wall Street Bets on Wall Street Bets on Reddit, which, as you alluded to, it sort of was a step that came on after this whole sort of GameStop phenomenon. And what they did was they encouraged people to buy the SLV ETF to kind of trigger a short squeeze on silver futures, because that's the idea, is that there are always such large amounts of basically naked silver shorts in the market, in the futures markets, and that these are there to help suppress the silver price. So what happened at that point was, in a matter of about 3 days, silver went from $25 to $29.50. Interestingly enough, gold was actually flat during that period. So it really was very much silver specific. The average silver stock was up about 30 to 40% in just 3 days. The volumes on silver miners were up 6 to 7 times. And we saw SLV, its volume, its daily trading volume was up 9 times. So, there were some interesting effect on the silver bullion dealers as well, because people went out and bought physical silver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious because we keep talking about 2021. Obviously, now with this tariff talk, we're in a different environment. So, I'm kind of curious about how it's comparing to that year so far. I mean, as you mentioned, March 31st is basically around the corner now, but there's a lot of chatter online. How does it compare with what we saw back in 2021?
So, I mean, we were in the early days of COVID. That's a little bit different. What's different now, I think, to some extent, is the availability and the premiums on physical silver. They are much more sort of in line with what you'd consider normal. However, interestingly enough, what I find kind of lines up is there is a fair bit of tightness in the market. Mm-hmm. We're seeing that because lease rates on silver are several times what's considered normal. So that's a clear indication that the physical silver market is really quite tight. And so what you have is this member of the X or formerly Twitter community, Squeaky Mouse, who's encouraging people to buy physical silver or buy the Sprott Silver ETF, which is considered a solid physical silver ETF, where they don't lease out the silver, and there's no sort of, I guess, questions around that sort of treatment of the silver that's used to back the ETF units. To go out and buy either physical or Sprott PSLV ETF to basically squeeze the shorts out of their naked position and help drive the silver price higher. There's about 223 million silver ounces that are net short right now. That's about 25% of the annual mine supply. So it certainly is significant. And if you look at the ratio of paper silver to physical silver, we're at something like 378 to 1, which is well beyond any other futures market for metals of any metal, I should say, or any commodity. So really outsized sort of ratio of paper to physical.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I mean, we got a lot of viewers that are watching right now, hoping that this hits the silver equities eventually, those silver miners too.
So you can pause that and go to my Twitter real quick. And I just want to show you what happened today, a big slam. And this is kind of crazy. And we're all learning stuff together. And we're learning how to read these charts, which look incredibly confusing. If you scroll down, actually go to the first one first. If you go to the next one. So click on this chart. And what this chart shows you, and it's not a heartbeat, is that when the COMEX opened in New York, you can see that silver was brought down low. It was slammed, and then I think if you scroll up to the next one, you can see it looks like the prices went down. Like those numbers. Were they at like?
So what you're seeing with the blue lines?
Were they down to like 27 at some point?
No. And what you're seeing is these blue lines are a trajectory where it would be heading if it had not been slammed.
No. This is where it ended. No, look, it's
the blue lines.
Oh, you think so?
Yes, that's a trajectory line.
Okay, but if you started out and you look at the chart, it looks like it was down to 26 and it ended at 34.
Not today.
Yeah, that's today.
It did not go down to $26 today. It never does.
That's what it says. It opened up because
that's July.
Because I'm looking. Is that July?
The far left is July.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Well, I'm trying to follow these guys because this guy says, well, despite the carnage and chaos, silver is at its highest weekly close since 2012.
Today.
Yeah. So I guess it was very volatile today. It went up and down and up and down.
I got several text messages today because I follow, different, gold and silver companies, and they're like, buy now, silver's down, because they always try to get you when silver's going down. But that's, if you're seeing, I believe that when we're looking at these types of charts and we're seeing what's going on, you see these heavy slams. I think they're flexing their muscles. If I'm getting a, kind of a word from God, we can slam you down. Do what you want on Monday, but we'll slam you down no matter what you do. And I definitely disagree with that. Whether, we participate in the protest on Monday or not will yet to be seen. I'll have to take a look at our checkbook, but I will be participating. Exactly. We'll be participating in spirit. And if you were going to already get some silver this month, and for the podcast listeners, I've had the ITM trade, we were with ITM for so long. I had the Zhang Enterprises, resistancechicks.com/God's money scrolling at the top. If you guys have questions about this silver squeeze, go ahead and schedule a call. You probably won't get in before Monday with Zhang Enterprises, but to maybe further understand it, if Leah and I haven't answered your questions, go ahead and contact them. What I love about it is that it's a free consultation call. They will patiently answer your questions. If Leah and I have not adequately explained this. I think the garden tiller thing was absolutely brilliant. Like, I feel really proud about that.
Yeah. All right. So I guess Tesla's still under fire, and people keep keying their cars, and Tesla takedown, revolutionaries prepare mobilization nationwide. Have you heard about this? Far left revolutionaries behind the Tesla takedown color revolution operation have identified dozens of Tesla targets nationwide and are preparing to mobilize far left agitators aligned with the Democrat Party to those locations as soon as Saturday in what the Rogue Group reportedly funded by Soros-linked organizations like Invisible and Global Day of Action. The Tesla Takedown website links to the Action Network, an online platform used by shady far-left NGOs to organize and fundraise, which shows that groups like the Troublemakers and the Disruption Project are leading tomorrow's efforts to tank Tesla's stock and destroy shareholder value. I don't think it's going to work. Stopping Musk will help us save democracy. So I guess they're going to meet in certain cities, and people are still firebombing Teslas, and we talked about this last week. What do you guys
so
think?
It's scheduled for Saturday,
Yes.
March 29th. Laura Loomer says if you get footage of these protests or catch acts of violence or vandalism on video, then she's got a place for you guys to go there. But I will say this: not only are we looking at this Saturday, March 29th, for this Tesla takedown, I don't think Leah has this up, but I'm just going to throw it out there just so that we're all aware. I had heard that there are also protests, just overall protests, lefty protests. I got my hat on that says the devil is a liberal today. There will be protests on the 5th, like countrywide in the cities. Some people are being told to stay at home. I will not be doing anything different on the 5th.
I haven't heard anything about the 5th.
I did. I told you about it.
I know, but
days
I
ago.
haven't seen it.
So I saw it, and there is a website for it, how much traction it gets. So it's very real, but I don't know how much traction it's going to get. They are trying so hard. They need, they need? They need another George Floyd moment to rally the masses. It doesn't work for the left to just like make up a date. It never does well, but they need something to trigger them, get them going.
Yeah.
They ain't got nothing right now.
All right. So the FAA admits it missed dangerous patterns leading up to the DC plane crash. The plane crash hit the helicopter, and the 3 military pilots died. The head of the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, told Congress on Thursday that the agency has to do better in identifying safety threats following January's deadly mid-air collision over Washington, D.C. that claimed 67 lives. During a hearing before the Aviation Subcommittee of the Committee on Commerce, Science and Transportation, the FAA acting administrator Chris Rochelu stated that an artificial intelligence-led review of airports, I'm trusting that, with similar helicopter airplane congestion is expected to be completed within a couple weeks. We have to identify trends. We have to get smarter in how we use data. Okay. Well, remember that January 29th collision between an Army helicopter and the American Airlines jetliner over the Potomac River left 0 survivors, marking the nation's deadliest plane crash since 2001. Over 67 deaths, 64 passengers, and the crew on the jetliner. 3 were the crew on the Black Hawk helicopter. So they've had some close calls. They're trying to take accountability. I'm not seeing it. Communist revolutionary arrested in connection with the Vegas Tesla firebombing attack. It looks like the Democrat Party nurtures communist revolutionaries like 36-year-old Paul Kim, who was arrested this week after shooting and firebombing a Tesla collision center in Las Vegas, Nevada. The LVMPD officers arrested Paul Kim on Wednesday night on charges including arson and possessing an explosive device. The LVMPD announced the arrest at a press conference on Thursday afternoon. The LVMPD told reporters that a review of Kim's social media profiles indicates the suspect has ties to radical extremist groups, including the Communist Party USA, Revolutionary Communist Party International, and Hidden Palestine and Palestine Action. Sounds like he's got a lot going on for him.
He does. Here's a picture of him. Let me scroll this down a little bit faster so you guys can see him. I find this whole thing, not suspicious per se, but when we go to Las Vegas, man, all my spidey senses go up and I don't trust anything that I'm seeing regardless. I'm sure this guy is a lefty and part of the Communist Party and all that they're saying about him, but I'm just going, okay, we've got more stuff. Anything that happens in Las Vegas, I'm just kind of questioning. It's like you tell me that there's election issues in Miami-Dade County, Florida. I go, You know what I mean? Like, of course, this is where that kind of stuff goes down. Las Vegas tends to have a lot of these types of big deals that they want to hit the news media a lot. So I just kind of go, just him. That's it. Do you want me to play any of this?
No. Yeah. Let me see here. All right. So let's hit this RFK Jr. Effect here. This is the RFK Jr. effect. McCormick Spice reformulates food products to align with the MAHA agenda. So we're going to talk about this today, where RFK Jr. has met 2 weeks ago with the heads of the big companies, Big Food.
Big Food.
Not Big Ag, Big Food. The guys that take corn and soybean and turn it into your kitchen table. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. has made it an agency's mission to reverse the chronic disease epidemic by implementing the Make America Healthy Again initiative, which aims to eliminate toxic food. So, Old Bay seasoning, and I'm thinking to myself, what could be in Old Bay seasoning that would be bad?
Scaring me.
You know. So the Hunt Valley, Maryland-based spice company is actually known for its black pepper and paprika products and iconic brands, Frank's Red Hot, Old Bay, and Cholula. So McCormick's surge in reformulation activity only suggests that the company is getting ahead of RFK Jr.'s incoming MAHA policies, which focus on removing artificial dyes and other harmful ingredients from the food supply chain. Foley also told investors that McCormick has been well underway with reformulation work and has moved to reduce sodium. Well, there's nothing really wrong with like regular salt. I don't know.
I don't trust the way that they use sodium, but you see on this list here that we have up here, you've got French's, McCormick. I'm just thinking the brand names that I know, Zatarain's, Schwartz. There's a lot of, Grill Mates, we use that. So I'm all about them trying to reformulate things. And you know what I said? We didn't talk about this. It also was in the news this week, and I don't think you have this up. Steak and Shake. Do you have this up?
No, I don't have that up.
Okay, so Steak and Shake has transitioned to beef tallow for their frying.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Now, you and I, Leah, I have this, we grew up with Steak and Shake. We didn't go there very often. As I have gotten older, the relevancy of Steak and Shake has gone down and down and down and down and down. We had a Steak and Shake right at the street that closed completely down. Okay. It's not even there anymore. And I was like, this is the most brilliant move. They made a post this week that RFK Jr. shared, that said, listen, guys, these are the changes that we have made. What else would you like to see? And then I think it was Tom Renz that came back with some ideas for, less antibiotics in the cattle and the meat and so on and so forth. And I loved that. And I'm like, this is the most brilliant move that these companies can make. Do you know how devoted Christians are to Chick-fil-A for one reason and one reason only? I'm going to be honest, and you can hate on me and not watch my show ever again if you want. The chicken's not that great. And they still use antibiotic-raised chickens that are not raised in a free-range situation, okay? So they already are using, not the greatest food, but Christians, because they're Christians and they believe it and they feel it, they flood to Chick-fil-A. They love it. They're closed on Sunday. It's a Christian company, so we're going to support it. And Chick-fil-A does great. Now, of course, they have really good service. I'm not going to knock that. They do. They absolutely have excellent service over there at Chick-fil-A. So what I'm thinking is the most brilliant move that Steak and Shake can make. Could you imagine the entire MAHA movement that doesn't even like fast food all of a sudden starting to take their little children that never get to go to McDonald's, that never get to go to Wendy's and all of these things. And you know what? We're going to Steak and Shake.
Yeah.
We're going to Steak. You get the MAHA movement. When we travel, it's very difficult to find places to eat. Chipotle is about it as far as crunchy food, okay, that we can get that's not, that's healthy. And all of my friends, because I kind of keep the same style of friend group, are in the same group. Like we struggle to find places to eat when we travel. Imagine Steak and Shake getting added to all of us in our crunchy list that we're willing to go to Steak and Shake to get burgers and fries because they use food that's raised without antibiotics and vaccines, and they fry their French fries and things in beef tallow. I'm telling you, it's the most brilliant move that any fast food restaurant has ever made, hands down, bar none. You watch it, you predict it right here on the show. And if I believed in stocks, I would be getting some. But I don't. So I
Big
won't.
food CEOs told RFK Jr. what really terrifies them in a private meeting 2 weeks ago. Today, RFK Jr. revealed what they told him.
Yeah.
And then he did exactly what they were afraid of. So I'm going to go over here and bring this up. All right. Let's see. Oh, that's not what we want. Wait, where are you, RFK? I'm trying to bring this
I had it up.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. I had it on that same article.
Oh, you did?
Oh, I didn't have that. I had the article.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to screen share here. Okay, so here's a picture 2 weeks ago with all of the big food. So today, Kennedy, this is happening today, revealed what they told him behind the closed doors with the Heinz ketchup guy and all the big food conglomerates.
The food companies all came and met with me 2 weeks ago. And they're scared of me, but they're more scared of Governor Morrissey. Because what they said, and the reason they said, well, tell us what you want, and we're going to do it. And they said, but stop these governors from passing these laws. Because we don't want a patchwork where West Virginia and California are banning food dyes. And we have to make special products for those states. So they're terrified of this, of what you're doing. I'm also saying
Okay, so this is really interesting because Governor Morrissey is the governor of West Virginia, and he's actually getting things done. He just made West Virginia the first state in the nation to make sweeping changes to clean up our food.
You had it going.
I'm proud to launch what I'm calling the 4 pillars of a healthy West Virginia. First, we have to clean up the food. We really do. Let's start with no more dyes and dangerous additives.
Come on.
Love it.
Yes, Morrissey.
We know that studies show that can lead to issues with hormones and hyperactivity
Come on.
and learning challenges for our kids and even cancer. Our kids deserve better, and now they're going to get it. You deserve that. That's why earlier this week, we took the first step to remove those harmful dyes from school nutritional programs and food items.
All right.
Amazing.
I'm thankful to the legislature for their leadership in passing this bill and making West Virginia a leader, the
Sure,
first
why not?
state in the nation to make sweeping changes to clean up our food.
Wild, wonderful, and healthy. I like that.
I have so much to say on this. Leah, before you play this next one, I want to get this thought out because I don't want to lose it. Just pause that. I love that so many states are starting to feel themselves as independent states again. Like, we are not part of just the federal government. We do not do the federal government's bidding. If we want to ban GMOs in our states, we can ban GMOs in our states. Just because they're federally allowed doesn't mean that we can't, as states, say, no, we will not accept your food products that have these dyes. We are little countries. I live in Ohio. Oh, Patriot Gallery says this almost every day, it feels like. Ohio is my country, whatever state you live in. And I know we have worldwide viewers, but we're talking about America right now because you guys already banned this stuff in Europe and in the UK. We are standing up, and I love that Morrissey is like, no, I don't think so. I'm a state. And my state says no. We have borders for our daggum reason. No food coming in. Do you know when you try to go into like California and stuff, there's certain things you can't bring across the border food wise because they don't want you to bring in things that may harm their like, you know, trees and stuff. I got borders, man. I'm so down for this. It's not even funny. I'm so excited about this, man.
So now they're actually going to ban soda and ultra processed food. Now, this is going to harm a lot and hurt a lot of people because you're not going to be able to buy. Well, this is going to harm people mentally.
Clarify again, you missed something that you don't think you missed. For SNAP users.
For SNAP.
You said they're going to ban sodas. Right.
For
not in general.
Stamp. So a lot of food stamp people, like, meaning you're probably, I don't know if you're not going to be able to buy Cheez-Its or something. Like, I don't know. We'll see where this goes.
By the way, I think my voice can travel. Isn't it a wonderful and a historic moment to have a Kennedy in West Virginia?
That's right.
With that,
Nice. There we go. Yeah.
now, and now I will be signing the intent for the state of West Virginia to file multiple SNAP waivers as I described.
Look at RFK getting the kids around him for a picture.
So the kids don't know, honestly, what they're smiling for. They're smiling if their parents are on food stamps, so they're not getting pop, and you're not getting chips, and you're not getting any more snacks.
Right.
We're just buying steak and potatoes from here on out.
Right.
So there is that. So that's what they're afraid of there. I'm going to have to do the Susan Humphreys off of YouTube because I don't want to be anti-vax on YouTube. But let's go over here to our favorite economist over here, Peter St. Onge. Why do boomers own everything? By their 30s, boomers own 20% of the national wealth. For Generation X, it was 8.5. For millennials, it's not even 3%. It's because of inflation. They are able to take their wealth that they've accumulated before inflation and have it make money for them. But these Generation X and the millennials, they're making more money, but they're not they can't build more wealth. And it's not just because we're buying more things.
Right.
It's the big things like home prices, cars, appliances, taxes, and all those things make it so that people can't live on one income and actually amass 20% of the nation's wealth by 30 years old.
Yep.
Why do baby boomers own everything? Last week, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent reported that the top 10% of Americans account for half of consumption, calling it, quote, unsustainable. This 10%, of course, is overwhelmingly baby boomers who spent the past 50 years having their assets pumped by the Federal Reserve while voting for big government that knocks the first rungs out of the career ladder for the young. The end result is boomers with vacation chalets, while for the young, wages are flat, prices are up, and buying a house or starting a family is a pipe dream. Instead, they lurk in mom's basement fantasizing about the revolution. The numbers come from Moody's Analytics, who finds the top 10% of Americans accounted for just 36% of consumer spending 30 years ago, but now it's up to 49.7%. It's getting worse fast. In Biden's last year, the top 10th increased spending by 12%, while the other 90% of Americans actually spent less. So that's a so-called K-shaped economy, with the top living it up while everybody else gets killed. In fact, over Biden's 4 years, spending by the bottom 80% of Americans was flat, while the rich increased spending by nearly a third. Earlier this week, I mentioned how the Fed seems to be running policy based on the stock market, and this is part of the reason why. The rich are holding up the entire economy. It means stock prices and home equity are holding up the entire economy. A few years ago, the Washington Post published a chart showing shares of national wealth by generation. So by the time they were in their mid-30s, boomers owned 20% of the wealth in America. For Gen X in their 30s, it was 8.5%. For millennials in their 30s, it's not even 3%. So how did this happen? There's two main causes: growing government and the Federal Reserve. Between 1990 and today, inflation-adjusted federal spending more than doubled. Federal regulations have gone from 118,000 pages in 1990 to over 180,000 today. Regulation hits small business startups much harder. Manufacturing, for example, regulation costs small companies twice what it costs big business, who get to spread it over a bigger base. In fact, according to the National Association of Manufacturers, regulations cost small manufacturers more than salaries cost. Crippling small business knocks out the first rungs on the ladder. And by one estimate, native-born business formation is down 85% since 1990. Even bigger is the Federal Reserve. Since 1990, the Fed's average real interest rate has been just 0.1%. In other words, 35 years of free money. This has been amazing for boomers because zero interest rates make stocks and house prices soar. To illustrate, before boomers, in the 35 years from 1955 to 1990, both house prices and stocks went up by half, so 47-49% after inflation. In the 35 years since 1990, house prices went up 124%, stocks went up 600%. So anybody who owned a house in 1990 is rich. Anybody who owns stocks is a millionaire. And if you didn't own a house or stocks in 1990, you got the inflation that paid for it all. So it's $6.
That is, and here's the thing. That's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Like my grandma's generation and your parents in their 60s and 70s, if they had their stocks before 1990, they're doing great. They're millionaires. And they do hang on to them. And older people are very happy looking at their portfolios every day. It's what they do. and they love it and they're so excited and they have no idea what the rest of us are going through. They have no idea. They don't even think like, well, why don't you just save? Why don't you just invest? Why don't you just do this? Because inflation is making it so that two people have to work and they still can't live a regular life. It's the most evil, diabolical thing. It's like watching these I don't even call them boomers. What do you call them?
Our parents.
Yeah, like the 60 to 80-year-olds. Like, it's, or 65 plus. It's that generation was the last generation to be able to survive, thrive. And now I'm going to tell you, you got to make a hustle. You got to lie. You got to cheat. You got to steal. There's no honest way to make any sort of, and I don't even think the stock market is honest, but at least it was a pretend honest.
And unfortunately, there's, I'm sure, so many of our viewers out there that are like, I'm above 65 and I'm on Social Security and I get $1,500 a month and that's it, So that's, that's really depressing.
Yeah.
But God's going to turn this around. That's what we're praying for. Leah, before you move on, I want to read a couple of comments before we get too far into the weeds. Shauna says, getting rid of the dyes will help with the children who have reactions that cause them to be hyperactive and worse. We cut those dyes out a long time ago, but some people just struggle with doing that. 100%. Britt Baza says, red food dye is actually made from dried carmine beetles that are then crushed and then rehydrated. So if the USA doesn't want to eat beetles, stop buying red food dye. Well said. Kimberly Vinzel says, I appreciate that they want healthier food, but I don't like more government regulations.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second, Leah, if we have a minute. I agree with you on that to a degree. However, what happens with quote unquote government regulations, most of the time, they only negatively affect the little guy. So what we would like to see is the big guy, the big ag, the regulations don't hurt them. They don't touch them. In fact, they benefit them. Okay. We want to heavily regulate these giant corporations. You do. You actually do. The giant corporations have been given LLCs, and I know everybody's like, oh, LLCs are great. No, that's limited liability. Corporations. That means that when they do things that are bad or wrong or harmful, they're not held responsible for that. A human being is not held responsible. Maybe the company is, but a human being is not, and a human being ought to be held responsible for these things. So we do want to regulate. We should make illegal, just like we make heroin illegal, just like we make methamphetamines illegal. These things that will harm people should be illegal.
I believe that the ingredients should be. So what they're trying to do is just squash all soda, squash all ultra processed foods. Whereas I think that
I'm not talking about the SNAP food benefits. I'm talking about banning red dye,
that's what I'm,
those types of
banning,
things.
Carcinogenic substances.
You should not be allowed to, I'm going to be honest. It should be illegal for you to spray Roundup in your yard.
Yeah.
You should be illegal to buy it. It kills bees. It's so harmful to our environment. It's harmful to overspray for people, so on and so forth. So as far as the regulations go, it's not the same thing. And like I keep saying, everybody that is a libertarian says, Michelle, but we want marijuana to be legal and we want heroin to be illegal and we want methamphetamines to be legal because we are libertarians and we believe it's a free for all for everybody. That's not, I'm a thinking person. So you know what I'm saying, Kimberly? So I think you agree. I just wanted to kind of address that for other people that may be thinking along those lines.
Speaking of regulating, I think we should definitely regulate abortion. And Idaho's governor just signed a law requiring students to learn about human development in the womb using resources like Live Action's Baby Olivia video. We have a friend of ours who worked on Baby Olivia. North Dakota and Tennessee already have similar laws, and 19 are considering it this year. This is a big win for science and life. I don't see why you wouldn't. You need to see that this is
a phenomenal animation, by the way. We're going to play it again. It's like the third time we played it on our show.
This is Olivia.
Hello, Olivia.
Though she has yet to greet the outside world, she has already completed an amazing journey.
Spark of life. Boom.
This is the moment that life begins. a new human being has come into existence.
Hello, Olivia.
At fertilization, her gender, ethnicity, hair color, eye color, and countless traits are already determined. She begins to implant in the uterus about 1 week after fertilization.
This is amazing.
Her cells organize into what we call an embryo. At 3 weeks and 1 day, just 22 days after fertilization, Olivia's heartbeat can be detected.
3 weeks. We have a heartbeat bill in Ohio. They usurp their stupid amendment.
The buds of her arms and legs appear by 4 weeks.
It's like they got a camera in there.
She begins to move between 5
It
and
does
6
feel
weeks
like that.
with both spontaneous and reflexive movements. At 6 weeks from fertilization, her brain activity can be recorded and bone formation begins.
Here I go. I'm swimming.
She can bring her hands together at 7.5 weeks, and separate fingers and toes emerge. She can also begin to hiccup. At the beginning of the 9th week, Olivia will have grown from a single cell into nearly 1 billion cells, and she is now called a fetus.
I mean,
she will
look,
suck her
like,
thumb and
that's
swallow,
not
grasp
even
an
fully
object,
2 months.
touch her face, sigh, and
Right?
stretch. At 11 weeks,
baby, for
she is
sure.
playing in the womb, moving her body and exploring her environment. Her taste bud cells have matured by week 12, but are still scattered throughout her mouth. Her mother will first sense Olivia's movements between 14 and 18 weeks, an event called quickening. Beginning at 18 weeks, ultrasounds show speaking movements in her voice box. Around 20 weeks, with a lot of help, babies have survived outside the womb. At 27 weeks, her eyes are responding to light. She can recognize her parents' voices and will even recognize lullabies and stories. Olivia has gone on an amazing journey during these last 9 months. She will soon signal to her mother that it is time for delivery and greet the outside world.
So I'm so
good.
glad. I hope they play it several times every year while you're in school so that you know, especially when you're doing your abortion nonsense. But that brings up another video that I thought I had up, but I don't see it. Please go to my Twitter account and scroll down because I want to show you a woman who is talking about surrogacy. And she, right here, Olivia, her name is Olivia.
No way. What a coincidence.
So she gave a long testimony, and I think I actually had a shorter one. Where is that? I'll just play a little bit of this. So she gave a long testimony on surrogacy and how she has all these issues. I'm just to play a little bit of this.
That invited me to tell my side of the story. As a child born from surrogacy and now fighting against surrogacy, I'm grateful and extremely honored to be in such a place. This is more than I expected, and I am very emotional, I have to say. My entire story I will share with you with a lot of sincerity, a lot of humility. It's the first time I'm speaking in front of such a big group of people that are so bright, so I'm a little nervous, I have to say. But I do think that my words today are important. Because all too often, unfortunately, we forget the people that are the most affected by surrogacy. But these people, they never give their consent, they never have their word, and those are the children that are born from surrogacy. These children that are ripped from their mothers at birth to be sold to strangers. Kind of like cars that you order from factories that you, pick options that you may or may not like. And these children are considered just like vulgar objects and products. I am today a product of surrogacy, created, sold, bought, and I'd like to tell you my side of the story so you can understand how it affected me and why today we can't just simply regulate surrogacy. We have to abolish it purely and simply for the good of the child and, of course, for the rights of children. A child should never be the subject of such a contract, and above all, should never, ever be the subject of a transaction. So as I said, we're now going to travel back 40 years. That's when my story all started, even before my own birth. My intended parents met. My intended mother already had a son with another man. My parents had a very successful business, very, very smart people. I have to give them that. My mother was 11 years older than my father. The money was flowing. They were at the peak of their careers. And I do believe that at some point my mother kind of forgot her biological clock. And so at one point they decided to start a family, but it was a little too late. At this stage, my father was 48. My father, was 37 and my mother was 48. And my mother already had problems with infertility. According to my father, with whom I had a recent discussion, he wanted a child from his own genes. So adoption was completely out of the picture, and surrogacy to them was the only option rather than giving up on having a child. Selfish decision, I believe, but it's their story. So they looked up the United States, and more specifically Louisville, Kentucky, to find an agency that could help them find a surrogate mother. My parents first gave the agency, of course, a list of criteria concerning the woman that what she should look like. I personally was born through traditional surrogacy, not gestational surrogacy, so my surrogate mother is biologically related to me. Even though, to my opinion, it makes absolutely no difference if the mother is biologically linked to the child or not, because to me, the mother is the one who has the child inside her womb for 9 months and, of course, gives birth to the child. About a year goes by, we're in 1991. My parents had a surrogate mother, but she wasn't holding the embryos. And so they had to be rematched with what would be my biological mother. And thankfully, she got pregnant only 2 months after signing the contract. It's often said that the agencies look at women's psychology through very thorough tests, that they make sure they don't have any debt to pay, but we know that that's not true. $14 billion was the surrogacy market in 2022. And do you honestly think that we're going to look too closely at women who might even lie during their interviews? I don't think so. My case is a perfect example. My biological mother, and she wasn't mentally stable. She had a huge history with depression. But on top of that, just before I was born, she had lost a son, age of 2.5 years old, in an absolute tragic domestic accident. So I think you can put yourself in her place. Mentally, she wasn't there at all. She was completely devastated after that. She was in debt, and she had to put on a brave face for her family, her children, and her husband. This agency that only saw what it wanted to see when it hired her, and that's the money that she could generate. They abused of the situation of a woman that needed money to feed her children and pay her bills. So I was born on December 10th, 1991, a date that was chosen actually by my intended parents because, funny enough, it fell between my intended mother's birthday, who was born on December 5th, and my biological mother, who was born on December 15th. I had to be a Christmas baby, actually. But even that was decided for me. Can you imagine? In surrogacy, births can even be planned out and decided, and I'm not quite sure how that is in the best interest of the child. And that's where it gets a bit emotional for me. As soon as I was born, I wasn't placed in the arms of my biological mother. The mother who had carried me for 9 months, the one who fed me, the one who spoke to me, the one who I felt every emotion invade her when she was pregnant, the one who in the end was the only person I knew. No, I had to take the great leap of the infant out of my mother's womb into the cold, austere world, the hospital lights, and I had to be sold and finalize the transaction into the arms of my adoptive parents, whom I didn't know. And that, unfortunately, was the first trauma that would write the rest of my life, the trauma of abandonment. So as a child, I was already showing signs of the trauma of abandonment. My parents couldn't leave me. I would be hysterical. I was a very complicated child. I was always afraid of rejection. I had trouble making friends. My parents couldn't leave me anywhere, sleepovers, parties. I would go in this hysterical crisis, and so they couldn't leave me. I was just afraid, unfortunately, that I would suffer a second abandonment every time they left me. But at that point in time, I was already going through an inner battle. How could I build myself without knowing where I came from? During my adult life, things got worse. I sank into alcohol, addictions. I even was raped because I was constantly putting myself on edge. I made several suicide attempts. My life wasn't the best. I had a hard time having normal friendships. I would suffocate people because I was afraid that they would leave me. I was alone. I was very, very lonely. I sank into a lot of depressions. I'm sorry. I was also never able to find a good job. I wasn't stable. And I had a hard time finishing my studies. Then, thank God, I met my husband, who gradually helped me rebuild my life as it is today, with a lot of patience, a lot of love. He let me lash out all my emotions and understood exactly why I reacted the way I would. Today, I have 3 beautiful children, but unfortunately, they in turn suffer from my traumas. My daughter, my oldest, Eleanor, suffers from the trauma of abandonment, and my son, Theodore, my second, suffers from the trauma of rejection. Unfortunately, they suffer in turn from my traumas because I do thoroughly believe that all of these are transgenerational. So surrogacy didn't just affect me. Thank you. Thank you. Surrogacy didn't just affect me, unfortunately. It affects my own children today. They, of course, have help. I had proof of the fact that I was born from surrogacy through a DNA test when I turned 30. I'm 31 today. But that was the physical proof, because I always knew inside of me, that I didn't fit in.
Your parents didn't tell
had
you?
problems with my mother. I saw that I didn't connect with her. I connected with my dad a little bit more because he was biologically linked to me. But things didn't seem right. And I knew inside me something was wrong. We children, we're not stupid, you know. We're very, very smart people. And not so long ago, I was diagnosed with bipolar disease. Shouldn't shock any of you after everything I just told you. My biological mother, so my surrogate mother, she herself battles with mental issues. And I do believe I inherited that from her. But how could I know? I never had access to my medical records on her side, and everything was hidden from me. And she could have lied during the process, eventually. In fact, when I got pregnant from my first child, Eleanor, I was scared to death. I was scared to death because I didn't know what I would be passing on to my baby. Cancer, a genetic disease, mental health issues. It's mind-boggling to me to find that it's in the best interest of the child to hide all of this information from them all of their lives. Sorry. And that is a brief summary of my life. Very, very brief. I could speak for hours on my life and all the problems that surrogacy has caused me. There are always consequences. Look at me. 2 people, my intended parents, 31 years ago, they made a small decision, then a bigger one, and then a more trivial one. And one decision after another, I came to the world. And on that day, I was the consequence of a small choice made by 2 people at a time when I didn't even exist. And this choice, it defined my entire existence. I'm a consequence, and I hope that soon it will be me who will bring about consequences to abolish the atrocity of surrogacy. But be careful. In my words, you'll never see me blaming my parents. They used a process that was just an option offered to them on a silver platter, and they didn't have the strength to resist it. Today, I don't feel any hatred for them. I don't blame them. I love them. But however, I do blame the system that is slowly but surely allowing surrogacy to be legalized. First, we approve the use of surrogacy for medical reasons, such as infertility. After, we accept it for social reasons. And then we accept it for anything and everything. And for reasons of human trafficking, the sale of children, the unavailability of the human body, for ethical, bioethical reasons, surrogacy has to be abolished. But in my humble opinion, and I'm not a doctor or I'm just a child, the greatest reason to abolish this monstrosity is for the sake of the child, for his or her rights, for a psychic balance that he or she, like me, may never ever regain. And I'm just going to finish with this. And this is to all of you that may think that this is normal, surrogacy is normal and we should maybe regulate it. If just one child like me has encountered so many problems in his or her life as a result of surrogacy, that should be enough to convince all of you that there's nothing good about this process and that nothing can make it ethical, despite all of your attempts to persuade yourself otherwise. Thank you for your time.
Well, I wasn't going to play the whole thing, but Michelle really was interested. So
I was interested. So I figured if
Yeah.
I was interested, then you guys might be interested. I want to comment on adoption versus surrogacy. So in our family, we have our little cousin and our cousin who is Uncle Jack's son. They adopted him straight from the mother's arms. She was going to get an abortion. And essentially, I believe God convicted her. And she kept looking for a place that she could give her child up for adoption. She got pregnant on a, lower income, drugs,
she
things
has
like
3
that.
children. She's white, and he was black. He was a drug dealer.
And so she just was like, I can't keep this baby. So our family adopted this baby day of, actually, yesterday was his birthday. And it's been a beautiful blessing for our family. And we love him very, very, very much as if he was born in our family. There are ramifications for that. There's always going to be. But there's a difference between trying to make the best of a terrible situation
and
making a terrible situation and trying to say it's the best. And
Or it's okay,
Or it's
yeah.
okay. And it is not okay.
Because there always will be these issues.
We have enough children that need to be adopted. And you should never make a situation that you know is not God and try to make it God.
That's the same with in vitro fertilization, because with in vitro fertilization, you're making life that you are going to discard. And there's so much happening. Like Elon Musk now wants every baby born, like and put and all the best DNA put together to just and then put in a little compartment. And then here's a kid. You can't do that. We just saw baby Olivia, and this is Olivia, and I think it's the Holy Spirit to show if it. The parent-child connection doesn't start after you're born. It starts as soon as you're conceived.
Amen.
So if you're going to take a 5 or 6 year old away from a parent, it's just like taking it's the same thing. This and we can testify to the abandonment idea that it's like that child is always going to want to be with the woman that carried that child.
Amen.
Okay. And eventually, here's the thing. What happens with these kind of situations is if the mom dies and there's closure there. Like my mom died. And then everybody's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Right. And I had to be raised by my dad or my grandma or whatever. Right. And actually in that case, I believe that there's like a child is able to transfer. Right. But when you don't know and you're not really told, or if you do know and you're like, but somebody carried me, like I had a mom, like you're always going to look for
and what's
her.
more,
you're always going to look for her.
So there's a difference between adoption again and selling a child.
And selling
we do not
and
sell
buying
human
it's child trafficking.
It's child trafficking. We don't do that. We don't even sell organs. Like you're not supposed to do that. So Lee, let me read a couple comments before we move on. Lorraine, hi Lorraine, says, my twins were born at 24 weeks. They are miracle gifts from God.
wow.
She said, my husband was adopted at 3 weeks. He found out at 12 and it caused a lot of pain and problems, especially with abandonment. Praise God for healing fractured souls.
Yeah.
Amen. Well said. Over on Rumble, Barry says, Oh, actually, Sherry says, I just saw the ultrasound picture of my grandson, 18 weeks. The picture from 9 weeks to now was incredible. He looked like a seahorse, but now you can tell he's a human. LOL, God's design is amazing. Congratulations to Sherry on her new grandbaby coming. Barry says, the 3 girls I helped bring up were abandoned by their mother. They still suffer from it now. They weren't surrogate. Their mother walked away from the 2 of them at 6 and 7 years, respectively. The other one was abandoned at birth, and the mother walked away from her at the hospital. That's incredible.
I didn't know
Wicked Psych, I didn't know that either. We're learning about you every day, Barry. Wicked Psych says, people are born under all kinds of weird circumstances. You should dwell on it or be grateful. Jim says, there will always be orphans and we must help them. Elon must repent. Wicked Psych says, finding families for children is different than creating children in a brave new world way. Well said. Over on YouTube, Sharon says, back to the food, what about the bad food they serve in hospitals? The hospital I worked at was bought out by a big corporation. They closed the healthy cafe that served locally sourced farm food, just crud cafeteria. Buzzy says, marijuana is the devil's lettuce. That's hilarious. Sharon says, yes, I know some in their 80s who still benefit from stocks and bonds. In our 60s and our 401ks were divided in half several times over the years. No pensions. Inflation eats up all savings. Sharon says they showed that life video to my daughter in her high school. Everyone should see the development of life. It's not just a bundle of cells.
Wow. We're going to take a little break from this heaviness to something that's actually kind of crazy and weird and definitely conspiracy theory. 4 Harris County sheriff officers have died of suicide in the past 6 weeks. The death of Deputy Christina Kohler was announced by the Harris County Sheriff's Office last week. 37-year-old law enforcement officer had joined the force in 2018 and served in the courts division. Day after Kohler was found, it was announced that former Harris County Deputy Maria Vasquez, who left the department in December, also died of suicide. Earlier last week, another former deputy, William Bozeman, was found dead under similar circumstances. Former Deputy Long Naging, 58, also took his own life on February 6, according to the medical examiner. McNeese added that he hoped the multiple losses within such a short period of time will spark a break from the stigma around. So here we have somebody who was on the force, somebody who left in December, and 2 retired deputies from Harris County.
Harris County what?
I don't know. I have to find out.
Like, what state is this in?
I don't know.
I'm just curious. This seems very interesting. I don't believe in coincidence. If you've got all of these sheriffs committing quote unquote suicide, this is a Clinton level suicide. It has to be. Like, there's no other way, unless they were under
Texas.
Okay, unless they were undergoing, MK Ultra tactics. This is not right. This isn't right at all.
No, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. And there's no leads. Because, I mean, they're all just suicide. Like 4 people in 6 weeks.
No.
Nobody's gonna believe that. I don't believe it.
Not buying it for a second.
I don't believe it for 1 second. Don't believe it. You guys believe it?
I don't think so.
All right, here we. Jimmy Fallon asked Bill Gates, "Will we still need humans?" And Bill Gates says, "Not for most things."
Hang on, let me find it. There we go. Not for most. This is where we get with the robots, and they're not wrong. We've got robots stocking shelves at grocery stores.
Listen to what he says. He goes, "There will be some things we reserve for ourselves."
Stop it.
The era that we're just starting is that intelligence is rare. A great doctor, a great teacher. And with AI, over the next decade, that will become free, commonplace. Great medical advice, great tutoring. And it's kind of profound because it solves all these specific problems, like we don't have enough doctors or, mental health professionals. But it brings with it kind of so much change. What will jobs be like? Should we, just work like 2 or 3 days a week? So I love the way it'll drive innovation forward, but I think, it's a little bit unknown. Will we be able to shape it? And so legitimately, people are like, wow, this is a bit scary. It's completely new territory.
I mean, will we still need humans?
Not for most things. We'll decide.
I mean, hosting a talk show, definitely. You're gonna need. Really?
Well, we'll decide. Like baseball, we won't want to watch computers play baseball.
That's correct. Yeah.
And so there'll be some things that we reserve for ourselves. But in terms of making things and moving things and growing food, over time, those will be basically solved problems.
So let me explain something to you. All the things that need to be done, it's helpful to have tools to help you get those things done. Mm-hmm. But God has created us for a purpose, okay? And especially when you're talking about building things, when you're talking about growing food, these things are designed by God to connect us to Him, to be creative. Okay, just because Ford, Rockefeller, and Carnegie turned being a human into being a robot, doesn't mean that we don't want assembly line things. I don't want AI art. I don't want an AI doctor, because I need to talk to some person who has empathy and can understand. And what is this?
I don't want to trivialize what Leah's saying here and make it and reduce it to being funny. Here, let me help you.
Okay.
I don't want to reduce it to being funny, but it's like, listen, Bill Gates, you can say whatever the heck you want, but I am still on the phone going operator when it tells me to say whatever. Your automated system can't even get me to a human to talk to. Tell us what you might, whatever it is.
No.
I'm still screaming at these stupid automated systems.
What can I do for you?
I'm like, you haven't even mastered that. So give me a break. And I told this to Leah yesterday, okay? Because I have been having some major website problems. We almost didn't have a website. I couldn't get into it today. And I, reduced to like tears. And it takes a lot to reduce me to tears.
Technology is what, you got upset right before the show today because technology was
And I'm like,
buggy.
okay, I have tried, and I'll be honest, with a couple of little tiny things when I was just like, I can't get this to work. I've tried AI or whatever. It won't work for me. And I'll tell you why, because it's satanic and the angels in my house and in my life will not allow the AI to work for me. Okay. But I said to Leah in a moment of frustration, I said, if I could get AI to run and fix my website, I said I would do it. I would cross over to the dark side. Okay. But then that's when I said to Leah, but you know what? I wouldn't do it because it wouldn't work because this AI garbage doesn't work unless you have sold out your soul to Satan. It doesn't work. They don't have it. So all of these promises, it's like promises, Bill Gates. You're making all these promises. You have no way of fulfilling. It is not working.
Yeah.
It doesn't even work.
So I watched several clips from a Nicole Shanahan interview with Allie Beth Stuckey, and I was just shocked and blown away. First off, and I don't have this clip up first, I don't even have this clip up. She had a devastating miscarriage last year during the campaign, and it was awful. And God came in and soothed her life. She has an autistic daughter. Okay, she is everybody talks about how big and smart she is, but she married a co-founder of Google. That's why she's a gazillionaire. Okay, she got a lot in this divorce, I guess. So she is close. She calls out big tech companies and she calls out Google and she calls out these things because she knows that her daughter was jab injured by and has autism, and her husband don't see eye to eye, and Google doesn't see eye to eye. Ex-husband, yeah. So I'm gonna play a couple clips of this with her here.
So she's not self-made.
No.
And there is an ego, a belief that they were brought up in a way. Many were highly educated. Many have professional backgrounds, great degrees from great institutions. But then the wealth sets in. And if you think about the trajectory these women go on once the wealth comes in, usually the wealth comes in not necessarily because their tech husband is this exceptional entrepreneur. It's because what I've realized is that the government helped fund their husband at some point along the way. If you look at like the history of Google or the history of Facebook or the history of Apple, even the history of not so much Amazon, but like even Hewlett Packard or Oracle, these companies didn't just spring up out of nowhere. They came through institutional backing at some point. In the case of, Facebook and Google, especially, where a lot of these tech wife mafia folks come from, it was Stanford. There's this Silicon Valley Stanford network. And if you look at where some of those grants or money came from, early money especially, and then accelerant money, it came from individuals that had government ties. And so these companies serve government functions as well. Google really was involved with the government in helping identify behavior on the internet, and Facebook as well. And so it's no surprise that the intertwining between the Democratic Party, which is so prevalent in California, and these companies has just always been there. That synergy has always been there, and that relationship has always been there.
So then the next clip to it is she talks about her daughter.
To the right?
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, let me see something. Go back, scroll down. Okay.
You want to play this one?
I think it's the same clip. I think that's what I want you to play. Go ahead.
Right here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And there
What
were
is their
many red
narrative?
flags along the way.
Sorry, just to clarify, what is the behaviorist narrative about autism?
That autism is a DSM-5 clinical diagnosis. It's a mental illness, like
That you're born with?
schizophrenia, that you're born with or that you develop. It's a developmental illness, like paranoia is a DSM-5 diagnosis. Now, autism is a DSM-5 diagnosis. It's the manual for diagnosing mental disorders.
Yeah.
And this happened, it's been kind of ongoing, and the behaviorists have always believed that, like, it's just something psychological. Now, you know, at this point, I realize autism is definitely not just behavioral, and it's definitely not just psychological, because my child is showing real signs of medical issues, like screaming pain, inability to control her arms. She like flaps her arms, biting herself, self-injury. Like she actually cannot speak. And I'm like, why can't she speak?
Yeah.
Like it's not like no amount of speech therapy is helping. At this point, I have her in speech therapy for multiple years. Like, you know, she just actually cannot speak.
Yeah.
She like lost eye contact for a while, stomach bowel issues. And I'm like, okay, clearly this is not just paranoia and anxiety. Like there's something physical going on here.
And that's what you mean when you say biomedical. You mean something physical that caused this.
Well, it's interesting. That's where your mind goes, right? Because if it is biomedical, then maybe you can trace it to something that could have onset it or some things that exacerbate it. That's where things get really dangerous. This is where people get canceled, because Big Pharma, this is the biggest secret Big Pharma has been trying to keep from us, is that perhaps there is something going on with either vaccines or with medications or in our environment or untreated illnesses that result in an autism diagnosis, with that like show up with that symptomatology. And it's very, very dangerous. This is where you go from being a mom on a quest to a mom who is, quote, gone crazy, right? Because if you start picking at the biomedical diagnosis or the biomedical issues, you ask that question. The C word, cause. Could something have caused this? And every doctor who is trained by the mainstream medical industry will say, we don't know what causes this, which is true. The scientific community has not done the proper inquiry to figure out what causes autism. And you know, then once you go there, you find RFK and you find all those other mamas who have been silenced over the years, and all of those doctors who have been silenced over the years, and all of those papers who have been redacted, and all of those scientists that are too afraid to do that inquiry or are producing research around that inquiry. You find all of them, and then you realize, holy smokes, this is the biggest cover up. This is, in my lifetime, probably, this is a huge cover up. And somehow I'm in the middle of it all, you know, and I found myself married to the guy who started the company that censors all these people.
Right.
It's a big problem for me.
Yeah.
It's a big problem.
So go back to my Twitter, please, and the one that I just recently retweeted. This is the one where she talks about a miscarriage. So I just wanted to make it personal about her. This kind of led to her faith in Christ. I appreciate her talking out. You know, this is her story is about, you know, kind of being in. It's interesting that RFK chose her as a running mate, but now she's amazing. Actually, I think she's amazing.
Something happened to me last September, which I haven't really started to talk about, but I'll share with you. You know, Jacob and I, we got pregnant. I got pregnant on the campaign trail unexpectedly, and I was 20 weeks pregnant.
Wow.
And we were starting to taper down the campaign, and but I wanted to go out there for mothers, and so I really wanted to I wanted to keep doing more, even though my body was kind of like, you got to slow down. But I was right at that very end. And then I had wrapped an interview actually with Megyn Kelly. And that was the day that I had my miscarriage. And it was pretty far along. It was really scary.
Yes. Wow.
I almost lost my life. And I was at Stanford. Actually, at 20 weeks, they take you to delivery. And so I went into delivery, and it was just not a good situation. Lost over 4 liters of blood. You only have 4 liters of blood, so I lost pretty much everything.
Oh my goodness.
And pretty much was dying. I was dying and was losing a baby. And it was a very scary experience. But at the same time, you know, I was taken so close to the end. And you could feel it. I could feel it, right? Like I could feel...
Like you could feel your life slipping from you?
Yeah. I had lost so much blood. And they were, you know, I waited till... I wanted to save the baby, so I waited to do the surgery. I didn't want to lose the baby. And so I was like, just wait, maybe it'll stop. So I waited, and I probably waited a little bit too long. And so then came the transfusion and then, you know, the kind of rushing into the OR. And there's this moment where, like, I actually had peace with this idea of going. And the chaplain came in, and, you know, you just don't know if you're going to come out of surgery.
Right.
So it was a moment of, like, I want to live. I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight because I want to come back for my daughter, my 6-year-old. And I know she needs me. And God, if like you want to bring me back, I'm going to give it my all. And I'm going to, anyway, so,
Yes.
And I came back. I woke up and I like couldn't believe it, but I woke up after surgery and I had lost a little girl and we said goodbye before I went into surgery. And, you know, waking up, I just was like, you know, groggy because I was out. And my first question was like, do I have my uterus? Because there was a chance I wasn't going to come out with my uterus. And the nurse goes, you have your uterus. And I was like, oh, thank God. And I was like, and I'm alive. She's like, you're alive and everything looks good. And I was like, wow, I'm alive.
Wow.
And my brother had flown in from Colorado and I saw him in the hallway. And then I saw Jacob in the hallway and I was like, all right, I'm here.
Yeah.
But so that was the end of September. It was actually on my 39th birthday.
Wow.
It's like a wild set of events.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then that leads to her later on. She gets baptized this year, and it's just an amazing set of circumstances that happened. I just kind of wanted to share that with you guys. Just don't really have any words on it, but just
Well, I think we've seen this transition from Nicole Shanahan. You came out of seemingly nowhere. We didn't know who she was until RFK chose her as his running mate, and then she becomes a forerunner in the health movement and advocacy for things like autism and things that are harming our society and our environment. And then you see this kind of development in her faith where she's becoming not just more vocal about it, but you're listening to her words saying, I'm growing closer to God, to Jesus, right? Then she gets baptized, and now you can kind of see, and I don't think it's very far reaching. Lee and I were talking about this last night when she mentioned that she was going to play this. I said, do you think that this was the catalyst for her baptism? And Leah was like, yeah, I do. I think that, you know, this near-death experience, losing her child, you can easily watch that transition where it takes you someplace. It takes you someplace deep, and her heart was open to it, which I just think is beautiful, and the miraculous work of God in her life. And she will see that child one day in heaven. You know, that loss is not eternal. That child is with Jesus. So I think that's just beautiful.
Yeah. So here we have a guy who he was told that you didn't need a pool permit for a treehouse, and then things went sideways.
Oh my gosh. Hang on, let me find the right one.
Noah, Jeannie.
I see it. Well, I will see it in a minute. Wait, I think, nope, that's not it. Thought I had it. Well, let's just start opening them up, and then we'll get there.
Do you not have it?
I'm sure I do. I didn't close it. Is this it? No.
No, it's in.
There it is. Got it.
Okay.
We're just missing it. I always wanted a treehouse.
Just a little bit more.
4 years ago, we asked the county if we needed a permit to build a treehouse, and they said no. My dad always taught me don't sell past the close, so I took that answer and went full send on the treehouse build. And then the county shows up unannounced and uninvited to inspect a totally different structure that we had pulled a permit for, one that we never even built. And they said, what is that? And I was like, bruh, it's the treehouse. And they were like, no, that's an illegal structure. However, they did agree to issue a permit if we brought in a structural engineer, so we found one, hired one, had some plans drawn up, shook hands with the county, and agreed to meet on August 1st, 2023. But before that meeting in July, the county called the independent power company and told them them to cut off our power, which they did, even though every bill was paid. No power, no water. We're kind of off grid. There's no city water here, so they literally cut off our water supply. On a totally unrelated note, anybody have a used D8, a bunch of steel plating, and about 5 tons of concrete? What followed was 2 weeks of fighting just to get the power turned back on. Then 2 years of the county putting up roadblock after roadblock of things that were not legally required, clearly trying to make us quit. So we jumped through every hoop, and then they threatened to cut off our power again for not having a permit while literally actively denying us a permit. So my dad, who's Italian and may or may not be in the mafia, I don't know, went down to the planning and zoning director's office and said, hey, we're gonna have a little talk. Shortly after that, we had the permit in hand. And now they actually want me to make my 800 square foot treehouse 50% larger, which really is just to raise the property taxes. Permits are just government overreach. They're just more ways to squeeze money out of us and keep control. And yes, we do have an allodial title to this land.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Wow.
Good for them. This is what I'm telling you, when you fight back, they get scared. They get absolutely terrified. They don't expect you to fight back. It's just like a rapist.
Yeah.
They don't want you to fight back.
Here's the thing. There is legitimately no difference in building a treehouse for your kid and building a treehouse for you.
Yeah.
Your kid can fall out of your treehouse, and you're not going to probably do as good of a job if you're building a treehouse for yourself. And
I mean, for your kid. You're not going to do as good of a job if you build a treehouse for your kid
as you are for just like a big giant structure. So, you know, some people are like building codes are there for a reason. Kentucky doesn't have building codes, and we have a friend.
Well, a lot of counties in Kentucky.
A lot of counties don't have building codes, and you know what? If you build stairs to nowhere, that's your own fault. We are a country where we have sod. We started with like sod houses. You're gonna get a permit for that sod.
That hole in the ground you dug?
Yeah, exactly. So building permits are archaic and property taxes are evil. Now, here we have a kid squeezed through the fence on the north lawn of the White House. Watch how the Secret Service carries his kid. He's never carried a kid, and he hands to a guy who actually has kids. It's just hilarious. And he's just playing with them.
He just can't help but smile.
He just kind
of pats him on the arm. He has no idea how to carry a kid.
You're gonna at least get your other arm under there,
He's
man.
gonna lose him. You're gonna lose him.
So he gets helped by this other cop, which is hilarious.
There we go.
No, barely though. He still can't carry the kid.
I know.
Right? I'm like, you've never carried a kid, but watch this guy take the kid. This is hilarious.
This guy has
Watch
kids.
the handoff. Watch the handoff. Ready? Come here, buddy.
Kid.
Come here. I'll take him. I have a kid. Here we go. There we go. Now we're going to get the kid to the parents.
That's it. That was so funny. Wasn't that yesterday or the day before that happened?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure.
That was so funny. I just want to know how he fit. Like that kid looks like pretty substantial.
All right, let's
in
go
size.
to Paula. My dear friend Donica sent me this. Everybody's been sending me this. They thought it was an old clip. No, this is your Paula White, your faith director, currently hawking. Did we play this one already?
No. Maybe we did.
I think we did. I'm gonna play it again.
I believe that when you honor God on Passover, starting on April 12th at sundown through Good Friday on the 18th and concluding on Easter Sunday, you can receive these 7 supernatural blessings for you and your house. According to Exodus 23, God will assign an angel to you. He'll be an enemy to your enemies.
Wow.
He'll give you prosperity. He'll take sickness away from you. He will give you long life. He'll bring increase in inheritance, and he'll give a special year of blessing. You're not doing this to get something, but you're doing it in honor to God, realizing what you can receive.
For your special Passover offering of $1,000 or more as the Holy Spirit leads, you will also receive the beautiful 10-inch Waterford Crystal Cross. Don't miss your moment to release 7 supernatural blessings and provision into your life.
And I believe that when you honor God
so some people have said that this was, put together and they weren't really going together. Now, first of all, she uses the voice of the guy who does all the infomercials. Okay, so that's a tell. But then it says, don't miss this opportunity to unleash the 7 blessings. Meaning, here's the $1,000. Don't miss this opportunity. That the opportunity is by giving the $1,000. Okay, that's the ad. What's even worse is what nobody's talking about is the piano man. That's the band member. The keyboardist from Journey, who she is fakely married to, if that's even a word, fraudulently married to. She's a 2-time husband stealer. Even had a little one-off with Benny Hinn. Okay, holding hands, doing something else. We don't know, hanky panky. They're both lying. Okay, lying. If her lips are moving, she's lying through her fake teeth. And then they got the lisp, but she got all the spit coming because you got the fake teeth. It's the fake teeth. It's just crazy. That man, she supposedly met on an airplane. He was married with 3 children. When they supposedly just happened to sit next to each other on a Southwest flight, which you don't have assigned seats on Southwest, okay? So you picked that seat next to that dude, okay? And why are you flying Southwest? Because you guys have buku money? No, you guys knew each other before. You had to come up with a scheme to meet each other randomly, okay? You are not flying Southwest where you could be sitting next to some normie, okay? There are no assigned seats on Southwest, okay? Or at least there weren't when you did this. Now, she took that man in hand and prophesied over him things he had never heard and reached to his heart like it had never been reached. And the Holy Spirit came over him and told him, you need to leave your wife. You need to leave your 3 children. You need to leave them. You need to, well, I don't know. They probably weren't at home, but you need to leave them for Paula. And then you need to get up on stage and tell people you need to do things for your husband. And if your husband wants to look at porn, you need to look at porn. And she sits there, oh, honey, that's so funny. And this woman in the White House running the faith council, praying for Donald Trump. What do you think she's laying on him with hands? Wow. I'm just saying. Michelle, don't have any words on that?
You know, I guess because I've already seen it like 3 times, and
we have not played that on the show yet.
What I said to Donica was, I said this should surprise me, but it does not surprise me. It's not surprising. This is, if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it sounds like a duck and it looks like a duck, then it's a daggum duck. And this woman is a fraudster. She cannot help herself. She has to do this. She has to be like this. And I'm telling you, these love offerings this inflation is killing love offerings, man. $1,000.
It used to be $19.99. You get the crystal. I never seen a love gift go more than $19.99. They hoped you'd give more, but I've never maybe.
I love how they included as the Holy Spirit leads. What kind of spirit's leading this?
$19.99. $1,000. She go big, go home. If you don't go big, you go home.
Here's the problem.
$1,000
I could do a whole
gift.
show on this, and we have. God bless Rhema. It's called Rhema College right now, Rhema Bible College now, but it used to be called Rhema Bible Trading Center.
Pay.
And Leah, she comes out of it saying, "I learned what not to do."
Yes, I learned.
But the problem is that they literally taught her in Bible school
how to do that.
How to not just do that, but they told you your ministry is a business. You run it like a business. And so everything that she's doing there is being run like every ad on television. I don't blame her. She views what she does
I've never
as a
seen
business.
no ad for any TV. Everybody knows there's a price limit on like.
No, but what I'm saying is they've made up their own category.
Right.
But they're still running it like a business.
I'm just saying.
I don't think she has any problem with what she does. I think she sleeps at night for just fine. Because she thinks that she's doing this as a business. This is how it's done.
This is how we do
So Jim says, I want the 7 blessings. Where do I send my check? Not. Wicked Psych says, when they say they care about any living creature, Sherry says, did anyone see the video of the pastor who told the ushers to close the doors until $40,000 was given? Oh my gosh.
That sounds like
Jim says, today we'll take offerings for $499.99 or more.
Half off.
That is half off. Don says, oh, this is criminal. Red says, did you see what Reverend Marvin Sapp did? No, we did not. Dale Jones says, is this the same woman from California who funded the campaign for Senator Warnock in Georgia, then later claimed to regret it because that senator did not support RFK's nomination?
I don't think so. All right, I do have some good news. If you're in Utah, you can drink your water. Utah governor signs a bill making state first to ban fluoride in water systems.
No way.
Yeah, you can play
That's
this YouTube
amazing.
if you want. The state of Utah is now the first state in the nation to ban fluoride in the public water systems after Governor Spencer Cox made it the law on Thursday. It's a Breitbart article.
Oh, Breitbart. Okay. It's like, wait, I'm not finding it. Here we go.
Now, of course, everybody's going to poo-poo this, but I think it's great.
No, I think it's fantastic.
Many communities across the country, they're tapping out on having fluoride in their public water systems. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has long been a fluoride skeptic, says it needs to be removed. Now Utah is making waves over this and could actually become the first state to fully ban adding fluoride from its drinking water. But there's major pushback on the state's proposed ban. News Nation Now anchor Anna Koyman joins us with more. So, Anna, Utah could set a precedent with this. I mean, what's behind this new push?
Yeah, fluoride, Markey, is in public water systems all across the country. And now there's a growing chorus against it, including our HHS Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Utah may be the first state to lead the way. Why? Well, it's looking to become the first state to prohibit cities from adding fluoride into their water supply. So here's why. For the last century, it has been seen as one of the greatest public health achievements because it prevents tooth decay. But new research is showing a link between high fluoride levels and lowered IQ in children. Supporters of this ban, even including some doctors now, are saying that choosing tooth decay prevention over brain health is not worth the risk.
Adding fluoride to the water supply is not the answer for preventing and treating cavities. And in fact, it could be very definitely contributing to things like hypothyroidism, a lower IQ in children, and the levels are too high. The amount that we're exposed to and children are exposed to on a day-to-day basis, that's where we run into problems.
So a few months ago, a federal judge ordered the Environmental Protection Agency to issue regulations saying, quote, fluoridation of water at 0.7 milligrams per liter, the level presently considered optimal in the United States, is a risk he says is big enough for the EPA to need to act. Now, the judge adding this, that about 200 million Americans are getting drinking water with fluoride that's been added intentionally. According to the CDC, that's almost 73% of the U.S. population who use a community water source, so the majority of us. Now, on the flip side, fluoride supporters say those studies are alarmist and a ban would prey on the poor.
So here's the thing. We do know that fluoride does prevent cavities, okay? I don't have a problem with fluoride treatments. I actually don't have a lot of problem with fluoride in the toothpaste. You scrub it, you spit it out. Now, you can obviously accumulate that over the years, but it doesn't make sense for you to constantly drink it. Like, it's not good for you, and it's rat poisoning.
All right, Sherry says, and Sherry is our resident dentist, there are so many other things that can help with tooth decay. Why do they only want fluoride? Ovi says, people are fluoride damaged at a scale we cannot imagine. Pituitary gland is the target. Connection with God. Maybe this explains what is going on.
Wow.
Amen.
That's
well said,
true.
Ovi.
That's a good one. Okay, who wants Greenland?
No.
U.S. troops in Greenland greet Vice President J.D. Vance with chants of USA, USA. So here we have a video. If you scroll down, VP J.D. Vance got a hearty welcome from American troops stationed in Greenland.
USA, 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 USA.
Vance arrived, you can scroll down, with the Second Lady Usha Vance earlier in the day to the Pitufik space base, the space base. It's literally the Pitufik space base.
Oh my gosh, it's snowy there.
It's cold.
It's Greenland.
Yeah,
they have summer for
Air
about
Force, at Space Force base. He told U.S. troops deployed to the base, "I want to bring a message from President Trump. He's grateful for."
I want to bring a message for President Trump. He's grateful for your service, grateful for what you do up here, and just wanted me to tell you that he's proud of you and he thinks about you. And of course, the same is true for everybody that's flanking me up here. We're thrilled to be here because the mission that you guys do is so important for the United States. It's important for our national security. And today, everybody that I met to a person was professional, was kind, was knowledgeable, and was dedicated to our country. You're a great credit to the United States of America, even though you are.
Sherry says. Sherry says, "Can we get a warm weather country or island?" Just saying.
Yeah, there might be a swear word here. Vance was joined by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Energy Secretary Chris Wright, as well as Senator Mike Lee. Waltz told the troops, "You're continuing a tradition of the U.S. military's presence in Greenland since World War II."
Hey guys, how we doing? Please, at ease. At ease. Good Lord, sit down and eat. Sit down and eat. Don't let the Vice President stop you guys from getting your chow here. How we doing? It's cold as shit here. Nobody told me. Well, thank you all for everything you do, and thanks for having us. So please sit down, guys. Please, please. I want you to eat your food. Usha and I are thrilled to be here. It's a really beautiful flight, actually. You fly over some pretty cool spots. I've never been to Greenland. Apparently, I'm the first vice president to ever visit Greenland, so that's a pretty cool thing. But we're looking forward to hanging out and getting to know you guys and understanding what you do. So I think what do we have? So we're gonna talk to the command and some of the guardians about what exactly the base does and all the important ways it contributes to national security. We're going to get a briefing, of course, about what you guys do every day, and then we're going to talk just about, as you've heard, we have some interest in Greenland from the Trump administration, so we're going to talk a little bit about that.
All right, so the current temperature in Greenland is 16 degrees. Ha! In case you wanted to know.
So that last bit, just to point out, like he said, as you know, President Trump has some interest in Greenland. This is not a joke. It's not a joke. Like, this is legit. And we don't have the right to countries because we want what they have. Mm-hmm. We're not imperialists.
I know what I want, if I can get a hold of it. I really wish I could have put this in the title. Can we make a separate video? Somebody screen record. This is big news.
Oh my gosh.
This is big news. One of the declassified CIA documents claims to know the location of the Ark of the Covenant. A resurfaced CIA document that was declassified in 2000 claims that the Ark of the Covenant was located by a remote viewer.
Oh, dear God.
Actually, remote viewing is not a thing.
No.
It's, I think I see something. I'm just a-looking, and I'm over in Greenland, and I'm a-thinking I'm a-seeing, because I just saw on the TV. In 1988, and that the U.S. intelligence knows the current location of the biblical artifact. The Ark, said to hold the Ten Commandments, is described in the Bible as a chest of wood and gold, which also contains a pot of manna as well as Aaron's staff. It was made by the Israelites shortly after they fled Egypt around the 13th century BC. A declassified document reveals the CIA found the Ark of the Covenant in 1988 using remote viewing astral projection. It was guarded by spirits using the power of unknown to us.
Okay, no, but wait.
They discovered historical knowledge far beyond what we know now. The remote viewing session began at 9:15 a.m. on December 5th, 1988. The subject was left in the dark about his target using a remote viewing methodology developed by Ingo Swann to reduce the biases in the subject's impressions of the targeted location. First, session notes track. You can bring this up for people to see this. The subject's travel.
Is this in?
In the article, you click on the tweet, and the tweet goes, not this one. It's the next one. Okay. So the session notes track the travel.
But, okay, so I want Leah to be able to do this in a funny way because I don't want to steal your
his
thunder.
Target and his initial impressions.
Remote viewing is real. It's evil. It's witchcraft. It is very real. So keep doing your funny thing.
I don't think that this is
I'm
real.
not sure it applies to this specific scenario,
And his initial impressions of the area. The target is located somewhere in the Middle East. Ooh, I'm feeling it. I got that one down. I confirm. The subject heard people in the area speaking Arabic. Oh, I can confirm. And saw mosque domes as depicted below. Wow. You know, we're getting somewhere. He saw people clothed in all white and black hair and dark eyes. Oh my goodness, we are getting so specific. The target is hidden. Underground, dark and wet were all aspects of the location of the target. The subject reported that the ark appeared to be fortified, guarded, and watched. A wall of now we're getting a little more specific. A wall of mummies was seen by the subject, so I'm guessing we're going to think it's in Egypt. Session notes left an ominous question next to the drawing of the mummies. Watched by whom? Target is a container fashioned with wood, gold, and silver. I love the word fashioned. That you read in the Bible. Fashioned. You read King James Version. It is decorated with seraphim. You are reading in the Bible. You don't say, I'm seeing some angels on it. You don't say
winged creatures.
You don't say decorated with seraphim unless you just reading from the Bible. An ancient celestial being as drawn in the session notes below. The subject perceived another container inside of it. Session notes concluded that the target is similar in shape to a coffin. Session notes say that the ark has something to do with ceremony, memory, homage, and the resurrection. The resurrection. There is an aspect of spirituality, information, lessons. Oh, lessons! That's like the Ten Commandments. Historical knowledge far beyond what we know now. I have missed my calling.
I did. Yeah, you did.
The purpose of the target is to bring people together. When the subject was asked to open the container, I read that in the Bible too. You don't touch it. People died. The ark could not be opened. The target is protected by entities that can only be opened now by those who are authorized to do so. The subject reported spirits in his impressions. The ark cannot be opened until the time is deemed correct. When the time comes, however, the mechanics of the lock system will be found to be fairly simple. Individuals opening the container by prying or striking are destroyed by the container's protectors through a use of power unknown to us. Session notes recorded all kinds of ominous impressions of forbidden, protected, anguish, horror, terror, bond. At 10:45 a.m., I want to be in this session.
Yeah. This is from the 80s.
The session concluded with the subjects returning. I'm back. Back to my body. The CIA concluded that the session was a success. Viewer 032 attained excellent sight contact.
Doing very well with stage structure. Viewer also exhibits the ability to keep AOL to a minimum. Have to be careful with editing, though. This does not seem to be a problem at this time. Just something to watch for. Are you still going?
This was the CIA's attempt to locate the Ark.
In the 80s.
Now, what I want to know.
Was that further down for me to click on or no? I don't see it.
It's in the article. You got to go back to the article.
Okay.
Now, it's the, I like what somebody, Maria Medvine says here from the Post. She says, I'm sold. It's the stick figures by the remote viewer that did it for me. It's proof. It's proof. The document further claims the remote viewer said the Ark is protected. So we read the whole thing. So in other news, Trump has a replica of the Ark of the Covenant at Mar-a-Lago.
You're kidding.
He does. Laden in gold, I believe.
Oh my, that's very interesting.
Truly.
I did not know that.
We've got an Ark. It's a beautiful Ark. It's like Moses' Ark, but bigger. I think ours is bigger and more powerful. We didn't think it was possible, but they took it and they made it more powerful. God even said to me, wow, what an Ark!
And then you've got a meme here. We did it, Mr. President. We found the Ark. Trump says, the boat or the good one? The good one, says Elon. Excellent. Very good. You know, people said that it couldn't be done, but we did it very quickly, I might add. And then, of course, Barron says, everything is going as planned, Father. That is funny.
So if it's not...
You want to play Rogan or no?
I don't know. Let's go play.
The Joe Rogan Experience. I don't know. I was very intrigued by
You
that.
know how he really got into it?
No,
He
huh?
got into it researching the Ark of the Covenant.
Really?
Yeah, because in Ethiopia, there's a specific church in Ethiopia that has
They
always
say
been
they
rumored
have
to
it.
be the place where the Ark of the Covenant is stored. And there's these guarders of these people that are guards of this area, and they all develop cataracts. They all have like radiation poisoning, and they're guarding this one particular area. They won't let anybody look at it. They won't let anybody talk about it. And Graham got fascinated by this. And they started doing a deep dive into history and historical accounts of the covenant and the ark and all these bizarre stories that have lasted throughout history. And the real evidence that there was really sophisticated societies that lived thousands and thousands of years ago, when we kind of assumed that people were hunters and gatherers. You know, Egypt is a great example of that. Like whatever they were doing there was fucking insane.
Right.
I mean, the structures that they made, still today, we look at them and go, what the hell were you guys doing?
Like, yeah, how was this made? Yeah.
And he believes that society had reached a very, very sophisticated level of technological achievement, and then something happened. And now we're living in like a rebuild. Even though we're very sophisticated, you know, in terms of technology, our technology's gone in a completely different direction than theirs did.
And where did Graham ever, in his conclusion, in some of that about the covenant, did he ever think that it's still there?
They think it's still there, yeah.
So some people thought it might have burned up in Jerusalem, I think it was. Or
See if you can find where that is, Jamie. It's supposed to be in some church in Ethiopia. Oh, James already got it. So,
I just had watched something on that because I'm intrigued by all that kind of stuff.
Well, you know, when you really start digging deep into it, it's very fascinating. This one particular place has been protected for so long, and all these people that have supposedly seen it describe something that's, you know, Trump apparently has like a model of the Ark of the Covenant at Mar-a-Lago.
No way.
Yeah, see if you can find that. Yeah, he's got like a recreation
So
of.
I don't know. I have something I want to read on this. You can finish your thoughts on it though. Good.
I'm just going to say that the remote viewing thing is a hoax.
I don't think it is for this.
For
maybe
the government is not getting real remote viewers.
I think they totally are. And oh my god, no, I'm dead serious. So this is from Todd Coconato. Yesterday. I'm assuming it's as a result of this. Let's be clear. Remote viewing is not of God. Remote viewing is a practice that involves attempting to perceive or gather information about a distant or unseen target through extrasensory means. Often described as using the, quote, mind's eye, it is a form of psychic ability that claims to allow individuals to describe details about places, objects, or events that are beyond the reach of their natural senses. Remote viewing is often associated with paranormal research and has even been explored by the government agencies like the CIA for intelligence gathering purposes. However, from a biblical perspective, it is considered a form of witchcraft and divination, which are practices forbidden by God. We as believers should have no part in it. It's similar to psychic readings and tarot cards. This is not the Holy Spirit. It is counterfeit. The Bible warns us against engaging in such practices, and then he lists several scriptures.
That thread is a hoax.
I'm not saying
that guy did
I'm
not
opening
remote
up
view any Ark of the Covenant.
I'm opening up this. What I didn't know you were going to talk about this today, but I had already read this from Todd, and so I had already been kind of thinking about it and praying into it. Because I don't mind naming names or anything like that. Hakeem Isler from that has been featured at Old School Survival Boot Camp. I've been watching his progress into remote viewing, and he is very, very much into it. And I've watched him, kind of graduate, just from Facebook updates and things like that. I am 1,000. I can't give a percentage of how much I am totally convinced that remote viewing is very, very, very real and very, very effective. I will also say it is very, very demonic and very dangerous and very satanic. And you are communing with demons.
That would be the only way to see it.
That's what I'm saying.
But that particular thing.
I'm not talking about that.
Okay.
I'm just saying I'm taking advantage of. That's why I said go do your funny thing. That's fine. But since you brought this up and I was already thinking about this in my own time, and I was like, I really want to, I have the same kind of sentiment as Pastor Todd Coconato. It's very alluring because it feels like white witchcraft. It feels like,
it is. It's exactly what it is.
You know what I'm saying? It doesn't feel
but
like
there's no such thing as
they're
white
not
witchcraft.
Exactly.
It's just all
but they're
witchcraft.
not calling it communing with demons. But that's exactly what it is. And so there are a lot of Christians. This is why this is really important to talk about, guys. There are Christians that believe in remote viewing.
Do they?
Because it's very highly effective. And I will say this, anybody can access it. Anybody can access it. It is, and so it's very hypnotic. It's very, like I said, alluring because you think that you're now using the Holy Spirit to access it. It's the same thing as people saying, well, there's Christian yoga. No, there's not. It's just still demonic. And so I want to just give this giant warning, you know, because a lot of people have used remote viewing very, very successfully to find kidnapped children. So it's like there's an allure there to utilize it, quote unquote, for good.
That's true.
Watch it.
Oh, it will never lead to anything good. It will never lead to any good.
Do not.
And for any sort of deliverance.
And is it astral projection? Yes, Sherry asks. It's in the same family. Astral projection is meaning, and astral projection is also real. Okay? Like, I'm sorry, this stuff is real. Don't you dare get involved with it. You're losing your soul over this.
Don't travel places in your mind. Don't try to go to people's houses. Don't try to do mind control. Don't try to talk to people. Don't try to see things at people's houses. Don't do it. Okay? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Amen.
Okay, we're going to say goodbye to YouTube because the last part of the show is Joe Rogan, but I don't think he's going to swear because he's got a little nice lady on there.
Okay.
And this is Suzanne Humphreys, author of Dissolving Illusions. And it's Dissolving Illusions, Diseases, Vaccines, and the Forgotten History. She made this amazing appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast. There's several things I want to say about vaccines. And not just her, but RFK has some things to say about vaccines. And I just want to do it freely without having to worry about what's going on YouTube.
So if you're watching live over on YouTube, I have now put the Rumble link in the chat. So just click on that and you can watch the rest of the show over on Rumble. So
you know, we used to do this for Facebook, but Mark Zuckerberg is like anti-vax now.
I know, it's great.
I know. So here, let's go.
I'm saying goodbye to YouTube and y'all can come over to Rumble.
So crazy. All right. So here we have Suzanne Humphreys. And I want to start with this is a great thread here by the Vigilant Fox. And I want to start with